Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So I didn't get to do OJ this morning because of the internet. Internet looks fine now. So I'm going to try to get some OJ videos done. Look, if someone else is streaming that you want to go see, I checked with Bill. Bill's not streaming today. So that means I'm free. If you guys want to need to go to a different stream, go ahead. This is 500 videos long. I said it was 400, but it's like 498. So it really is like 500 videos long. So I have to keep putting them out as soon as I can. You guys can watch them later. Or skip some. It's 500 videos long. I can't wait to see every minute, though. I really can't. I'm liking this a lot. I didn't think I would enjoy it this much, but it's very enjoyable. So let's go. It is not muted. It's just not.
Remember exactly. I believe he had a T-shirt on, and I
So it's just muted for a couple seconds on their end. Oh, Sally. Talk to us tomorrow if you need to. We are right here.
Now, at this point, which of the detectives actually climbed over the wall?
myself.
And could you indicate on Exhibit A where you climbed over?
On the Ashford Gate, just east of the first pillar that the gate rests upon.
And how high is the wall at that point?
Oh, I think it's probably 5.5 feet high.
Did anyone need to boost you to go over the top?
No.
You were able to hoist yourself up,
Yes.
climb over,
Yes.
and then you opened the gate for the other detectives to come in?
Yes, it's a it's a two-arm hydraulic gate with a latch there. You just flip the latch and it collapses the hinge, and then you can open the gate.
All right, so in effect you're disconnecting the motor mechanism that opens the gate?
Yeah, momentarily. Let them in, put it back, flip the switch back. It's now in operation once again.
All right, well, did you put it back into operation then after you let them in?
Yes.
So the gate was then closed after they entered the premises?
Yes, we closed the gate, but I did not flip the latch, but it was closed, yes.
And all four of you then proceeded to the front door of the premises?
Yes.
And who knocked at the door?
I believe, I'm not sure on that. It could have been Detective Van Adder or Detective Phillips. I'm not sure which did.
How long did he knock?
Oh, a couple minutes.
And there was no response?
None.
And you then walked from the front door to the rear of the premises?
Yes, down a pathway on the north side of the building.
All right, could you indicate the path that you followed?
Yes, just, this is the front door. There's a walkway. You leave the walkway and go north, and then there's a easterly stone path that leads around to the rear of the residence onto a patio area. And the pool is directly to your east.
At the time, there was no response to the knock. Did any of the detectives indicate an intention to secure the premises?
Secure the premises?
Yes, sir.
Not at that point.
All right. So your intention at this point was simply to try to locate Mr. Simpson?
If Mr. Simpson would have answered the door, that would have been the end of it.
All right. So you went to the guest quarters of Mr. Kalin, I believe, initially?
Yes, the first bungalow.
All right. And all four of you went to Mr. Kalin's door?
Well, Detective Phillips went up to the door, looked inside the glass door with louvers. Louvers were open. He saw a man lying on the bed, and he knocked on the door.
All right. Now, he open the door and let you in?
Mr. Kalin did, yes.
How was he dressed?
I can't really remember exactly. I believe he had a T-shirt on, and I believe he might have had sweatpants or some kind of loose-fitting trousers, but I'm not positive.
And, of course, you immediately told him why you were there?
Detective Phillips talked to him initially.
And what did Detective Phillips?
I would have remembered if he had sweatpants on. I would have remembered personally.
Tell him.
I believe, to the best of my knowledge, he told him that asked him if there was anybody in the main house. There was an emergency, and they had to know if anybody was home, and if they were okay, something to that effect.
Did Detective Phillips tell him about the death of Nicole Brown?
If he did, I did not hear it at that time. I was standing a little bit back. I believe I was at the rear of the group.
So no effort was made to notify Mr. Kalin of the death of
We didn't know. I'm sorry.
Of Miss Brown.
We didn't know who Mr. Kalin was.
All right. And did you ask Mr. Kalin where Mr. Simpson was?
I didn't personally.
Did any of the detectives?
I believe Detective Phillips did. I did not overhear the response.
I believe you said Mr. Kalin was disoriented.
Well, he had just been woken up. It was 5:45 in the morning. His eyes were bloodshot. His hair was messed up. It looks like he just woke. It looks like I look like when I wake up. Bad, you know.
All right. And you entered his room, and I believe you indicated you opened the closet.
I asked him if I could look around. I opened the closets. They were tall closets, very large closets, almost as large as the panels on these, on the courtroom.
Did you explain why you wanted to look around?
I don't recall if I said I was looking to see if there's anybody else there. I don't recall that. I looked in the bathroom and the closets and then and returned to Mr. Kalin.
What were you looking for?
Well, additional people that might have been secreting themselves in a hiding place, or could be a victim.
And was there anything other than what you had observed before you entered the premises that led you to believe there might be a victim or a suspect in Mr. Kalin's closet?
Well, I didn't know where somebody that was bleeding would be, but that closet and his bathroom and his shower were definitely large enough to conceal a person.
Well, did you believe that Mr. Kalin might have been a suspect in the homicide that you were investigating?
As I said, I didn't know Mr. Kalin. He wasn't handcuffed. I spoke with him, and as far as I knew, I just didn't know him. I didn't know what his position was at the Rockingham address. I didn't know what his association with Mr. Simpson was. I didn't know anything about him.
Well, before you looked in his closet, did he in any manner indicate that anything unusual had happened on the premises?
Well, I had asked him if anything unusual happened the previous night.
I'm saying before you looked in his closet.
No, I just asked him if I could look.
And when you looked at his clothes, what were you looking for?
Well, I asked him if I could, are these the clothes you wore last night? He said yes. I says, you mind? And he says no. I was just looking to see if there was any tearing, stains, same with the shoes.
Thought there might be blood on his clothes or his shoes?
There could be.
All right, and you picked up the shoes to look at them to see whether they had blood on them?
Yes.
Did you look at the pattern of the soles to see if they matched the soles of the footprints you had observed at the scene on Bundy?
I did.
And what conclusion did you come to?
They looked like they were close, but they looked a little too small, and they didn't look like an exact pattern. And there was no debris on them. There was no any type of dried liquid. They looked very clean.
No blood on them?
No anything. No dirt, no blood.
Now, Mr. Kalin told you that Mr. Simpson's daughter was also on the premises?
He told Detective Phillips, and Detective Phillips, Van Adder, and Lang proceeded to that bungalow.
All right. So you remained in Mr. Kalin's room while the other three detectives went immediately to Arnell Simpson's room.
That's correct.
All right. And could you again indicate on Exhibit A where Arnell Simpson's room was?
Arnell's is the furthest-most bungalow, and it's almost directly in the southeast corner of the property. It's the last room that the front door faces north.
Did you observe what the other detectives did when they got to Arnell's room?
Not at all.
Now, Arnell then came out and went with the other detectives, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you follow along? Did you go with them when they went around to the front of the house?
No.
You remained with Mr. Kalin?
Yes.
So the three detectives and Arnell Simpson walked, retracing the path you had just followed from the front of the house to go back to the front of the house. Is that correct?
No, I didn't see which way they went. I didn't know if they entered the back door or the front door.
Well, at some point, did any of them re-enter Mr. Kalin's room?
I don't recall. I took Mr. Kalin inside after a brief conversation.
Inside where?
Inside the main house.
All right. Did anybody have to let you into the main house?
I believe the back door that leads onto the patio in the southeast corner of the main house, I believe that was opened. I don't know by who.
Now, the route that you would have followed then to go from Mr. Kalin's room into the house would have been up these stairs and through the billiard room and into the family room, is that correct?
No. This stairway here is enclosed. This is an office with a door from Cato's room. This is an office with a desk that goes up against this window. This door leads to a stairway in the billiard room. We didn't go that way. We went out onto the patio, up these stairs, and into the, I believe there's a door right where, I believe this is a tree or something, right into here. And this would be just a little north of the billiard room. This is the bar area. There's several stools right here.
Okay. Well, did somebody come and open up this this back door and let you in then into the family room?
I believe so, but the door was opened.
Nobody needed to open it? It was open?
It was open for me, and I assume that that is the way that Arnell entered the residence. But I did not know. It was just open.
Okay. So then you were seated with Mr. Kalin at the bar area?
No. I sat Mr. Kalin at the bar area, and I walked through the family room to the kitchen. I noticed Detective Van Adder standing in the kitchen, I believe. He could have been in the hall. I said, Phil, that white male in the bungalow is sitting at the bar. Go talk to him.
All right. Now, at that point, were all of the detectives in the kitchen area?
I believe so, yes.
Including your...
I haven't done that in like 3 years. My kids are all adults now. So, I'm not ruining their Christmas. They're welcome to put a tree up if they want a tree. I don't want to do the work to put a tree up, stop the cats from messing with the tree, you know, water the tree every day and you know what the problem is? I don't have a place to put the tree. Like, I can't just take it out and put it at the curb for the garbage man to pick up. They don't pick up trees. So I have to take a tree somewhere. And I know what you're saying. Get an artificial tree. Yeah, but then I have to put that artificial tree somewhere for 364 days a year. No. Nope.
Yourself.
No, I just walked by the hall and I told Phil, I said, go talk to Mr. Kalin. He's at the bar.
18 inches sounds perfect, though.
All right. Now, were you aware of what the other detectives were doing in the kitchen area?
Not at all. I was responding to a comment that Mr. Kalin made, and I went directly to check out exactly what he heard.
All right. So at that point, you don't know whether telephonic contact had been made with Mr. Simpson.
I have no knowledge of that.
So your purpose then, after you spoke to Mr. Kalin, was simply go check out what he had told you.
Well, not everything. He talked about the limo driver arriving, and just prior to that, he talked about a crashing sound on his wall at about 11:15. He went out to investigate that, he's telling me, and he sees the limo. I stopped him right there, and I said, would you come with me? Just sit here, and somebody's going to talk to you in a minute. I immediately responded to where I thought that crashing sound hit the other side of his wall.
Okay, so your only purpose then in leaving the house at that point was to investigate the information that Mr. Kalin had given you about a crashing sound outside his wall.
Yes.
And that crashing sound again was at about between 10:30 and 11 the previous evening?
No, I believe he said about 11:15.
11:45.
About 11:15.
And what time was it now when you left the house to go investigate where that had happened?
It was probably just prior to 6 o'clock.
Okay, so you had been on the premises less than an hour at that point.
Could have been a little after 6. I'm not exactly positive. Yes. We hadn't been on the premises, no. We had been outside for 30 to 40 minutes. We arrived at probably 5:10. It was probably 5:40 or 5:45, maybe as late as 5:50 when we entered. A couple minutes at the front door. A few minutes talking to Mr. Kalin. It could have been as late as 6:15.
6:15. And what was the
But they're very fragile. They really are.
lighting conditions at that point?
Well, it was becoming light. On the pathway in the south part of the border of the property was overgrown with trees, and the roof and the building shadowed much of it, so it was deeply shadowed in there. Not much light could get to it, I doubt, even on a sunny day.
But you still needed a flashlight?
To see what was in front of me, yes.
Right. And you took that flashlight and went then to the corner of the garage and started down along the narrow pathway at the rear of the house?
Yes, this was a small...
Right behind me, I have a tree stand ready. So if I do change my mind and go get a tree, I have a tree stand ready right beside an outlet. And besides those two ornaments, I have a thing of ornaments sitting right over there. Just in case I get a tree, I'm ready.
Flashlight, though. I couldn't see much farther than a few feet in front of me with the flashlight. It was just a small 5-inch long flashlight for close work.
And your purpose was to look for a body of a possible victim?
From Mr. Kalin's statements, it sounded like the possibility that somebody collapsed against the wall in the rear. Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Now, how far did you have to go down that narrow walkway before you could see to the end of the house?
Do you want an approximation on the feet?
Yes.
As far as seeing to the end of the house, it was a very narrow path, a couple feet wide. When I started here, it seemed to slant down a little bit. So obviously, it's going to seem shorter than it is. Get down to this area and here. I probably went from where the maids' quarters are. I would just approximate that 40 to 50 feet to about the middle of Cato's room's wall, the south wall, the exterior of that.
Well, isn't there a gate at approximately this location
I wish, Sally.
where the maid's quarters are and the corner starts up again? Can you see where I'm pointing here?
Yes, I can see it.
Is there a gate there?
If there is, it was open. I didn't have to unlatch any gates to walk through
Then go get
any
some.
gates.
Was there a gate closer to the area where you entered that walkway by the front of the garage?
Once again, I believe there could have been a gate there. I believe it was broken. I did not have to open any gates, go over any gates. It's completely.
There's actually a building I want to burn down right now, so this might work. This might work.
Now again, if you could show us.
Objection again, Your Honor. Counsel's cutting off the witness's answer. I'd like for you to be allowed to complete it.
Have you finished what you were going to say?
I had a half of a sentence.
You want to finish what you were going to say?
Yes, ma'am. There was no obstructions. I had complete ability to just walk freely down the path.
All right. And how far were you down the path before you could see to the end of the house? If you could just indicate that, perhaps write your initials where you were standing when you could see to the end of the house.
Now, what do you mean by the end of the house? The end of the bungalows, all the way to the end?
All the way to the end of this corner here.
I'd probably say we're probably about where the maid's quarters were. It seems like this area here was slightly elevated.
Okay. Could you put your initials at that point? We have a blown-up photograph here that pictures this area along the rear perimeter of the house. Is that an accurate representation of what you saw?
Yes, sir.
Did you want to mark that as defendant's D?
Yes. D would be next in order?
Yes.
Except for one thing, the lighting conditions are much better at this time of this photograph.
All right. Now, from that vantage point, could you ascertain whether there were any bodies or persons along that walkway?
Well, the walkway didn't appear to end. Just with the narrowness of the walkway, it seemed to go somewhere at the end of the building. I was looking down the walkway towards where Mr. Cato, or Cato's wall was. When I got to
You wish, Sally.
within several feet of his wall, and I estimated from the architecture of the buildings about where his wall would be, I looked down and I saw a dark object, and as I got closer, I shined my flashlight on it, and I could see it was a glove.
All right. Now, you didn't suspect that this dark object was the body of a person, did you?
No.
You approached it to get a closer look at what it was?
Yes.
How close did you come to it?
Inches.
With your flashlight?
Yes.
And did you pick it up or examine it?
I did not touch it.
Now, did you continue on beyond where you encountered this object?
Yes, so that finding the glove and the condition of it even alerted me more that someone within hours had left that glove there going east or west. Someone left that glove, and I continued east thinking that there could be a possible victim or now suspect to the rear.
All right. But you only continued as far as you could go without encountering spider webs, is that?
Oh, no. I continued completely, all the way back to the rear. It was like a garden area, like a potting area. I couldn't describe it any other way. It appeared that plants were growing there to be uprooted and planted elsewhere. Large square area, probably 25-foot square. But I was running into spider webs the whole distance, but I still checked out the area. I was not crawling, so I did not know what the circumstance of whoever left the glove, what their dilemma was at that point.
Now, did you notice any disturbance in the pattern of the leaves or debris that you saw on the pathway?
Not that I could really tell what was on the pathway. Just leaves that have dropped onto the pathway and debris. Nothing unusual,
Okay.
other than the glove.
Did you look for footprints leading up to the glove?
As I said, the leaves covered most of the walkway. Of course, I did look both directions, but I did not find any, no.
There was nothing to indicate to you by the disturbance of the leaves or any patterns that you observed that you thought were of any evidentiary significance?
Well, I couldn't find any. I spent about 15 minutes making sure that there was no victim or suspect or any other person to the rear of the residence. I made sure that I walked back carefully, but I did not observe none, no.
So you spent 15 minutes back there initially before you returned to the house?
Yes, that was an approximate.
So you would have returned to the house then, what, about 6:30?
Give or take 5 minutes, yes.
And at that point, you asked the other detectives to accompany you to look at the glove as well?
Yeah, I contacted Detective Phillips, and I told him, I said, Ron, I found a glove on the side of the house that looks very similar to the glove that's at the scene on Bundy.
And where was Detective Phillips when you told him that?
I believe he was in the front of the residence outside,
What was he doing?
just standing there, I believe. I'm not positive on that. He could have been standing right in front of the front door, but
Then he immediately accompanied you back to look at the glove?
yes,
And how long were you back there then the second time?
just as long as it took for me to walk him back to the glove and show him. Then we walked back. He notified Detective Van Adder and Lang.
5
I
minutes?
respectively walked both of them back to observe the glove. They walked back to the front of the residence.
Detective Van Adder and Lang walked back together?
No, I walked each one of them back individually, so they didn't destroy anything. There was nothing that I found on the path that I could see was of evidentiary value, but I still walked each of them back.
Okay, one at a time then. You made
Yes,
a total of 4 trips back to look at the glove.
including mine, yes, 4 trips.
Where was Detective Van Adder when you invited him back to view the glove?
I believe Detective Phillips notified him and Detective Lang, and they contacted me out front of the residence.
Do you know where they were or what they were doing at that time?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Now, were you the first person to observe what you referred to as blood drops or blood spots on the driveway?
I don't believe so, no.
Well, objecting that would call for speculation.
Sustain.
Did you observe some blood spots on the driveway?
Yes,
Now, again, these were red spots that appeared to you to be blood,
yes.
and you were unable to come to any conclusion whether they were animal blood or human blood,
I did not come to that conclusion.
or even whether they were blood.
That's true, yes, sir.
When
I don't know what HMFIC means, but I'm pretty sure I call him that every day.
when did you first see these?
I believe at about 8 or 8:30.
This was after you had escorted each of the detectives back to see the glove?
Yes.
About 8:30 in the morning.
Yes.
Did you need a flashlight to observe those blood spots?
No, the light was quite good by then.
Or spots that to you resembled blood?
Well, it's always difficult to see them on that the simulated cobblestone red stone, but the gray concrete to the rear of the Bronco was fairly easy to see without much effort.
Now, I believe you indicated that at some point a determination was made that this was going to be declared a crime scene.
Yes.
And what crime did you believe had taken place on the premises?
I didn't declare it was a crime scene. Detective Van Adder did.
And what crime did he believe had taken place on?
I don't believe it was said this is a crime scene. This will be handled like a crime scene. In other words, we will seal it off.
If you're the boss, I want to raise.
And consider it the same as we would if it was a crime scene.
And do you recall about what time that was that that determination was made?
It was excuse me. It was shortly after I discovered the glove and led all three detectives to view it. And shortly thereafter, Detective Van Adder said, "This is now considered a crime scene. We'll handle it as such."
So that would have been what, about 7 in the morning?
I want to say 7:30.
Okay. So that would have been well before you had personally observed any spots that appeared to be blood on the driveway.
Yes, but I believe those were observed prior to my observing them.
Now, once it was declared a crime scene, that means everybody off the premises except the detectives?
Yes.
Was Arnell Simpson told that she would have to leave the premises?
Yes, she was.
And was Mr. Kalin told he would have to leave the premises?
He was transported to the station to get a statement from him.
Right. And was he told to await going to the station at some location other than in the house?
Yes, he waited outside of the residence.
Hey,
I
Jay.
believe he waited by Black and White.
Out on the street?
Yes.
And was a crime scene seal put up? Were tapes erected or barricades put up?
Well, it really wasn't necessary. We had a Black and White unit that took control of the Bronco, and then the residence was extremely secure unto itself. We didn't foresee anybody coming over the walls.
Okay, so all you really needed to do then to secure the premises was to have people at the gates to make sure people just didn't wander in and out.
Yes, sir.
And at that point, was all of the investigative activity suspended?
At what time, sir?
When a crime scene was declared at approximately 7:30?
Yes, Detective Van Adder said, I'm gonna leave the scene and write a search warrant."
And that is your recollection, that
Yes.
that occurred at about 7:30 in the morning?
7:30, 8, somewhere around there. I don't know. I didn't know the exact times.
Did you remain on the premises then?
Pretty much.
Ford Bronco was the chase. In the Ford Bronco was like an SUV, you know, a big boxy truck car thing. The white Bronco, that's what the police chased him in.
Except for one trip down to Bundy that took about 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
And when was that trip made?
Hi, Jay.
$7:30, 8 o'clock. Might have been very, very close in proximity to the time that Detective Van Adder left the scene to write a search warrant. Maybe within a half hour, maybe a shorter period of time, I left the scene with Detective Phillips to go to the Bundy address.
Now, do you keep a chronology that at which particular times that you come and go are recorded?
There's usually an officer at a scene that does that, yes.
And did you log in or log out when you left the Rockingham scene and returned to the Bundy scene?
I don't believe there was a log started at the Rockingham location that early.
Now, at any time were you informed that any of the detectives had succeeded in locating Mr. Simpson?
I know Detective Phillips had spoken to him on the phone, yes.
And when did that occur?
The same morning, and I believe it was between 6 or 7 o'clock, maybe a little before.
A little before 6?
I don't know, sir. I did not stand next to Detective Phillips when he was speaking to him, but I know he did.
When did you first learn that that had happened?
Probably about the same time that Detective Van Adder said, this is now a crime scene, or shortly thereafter. I had not been with those 3 detectives for several minutes, and Detective Phillips was using his cellular phone to try to call the residents and then call the station and call Mr. Simpson.
Right.
I believe he talked to his secretary, too, and learned his whereabouts.
Thank you. If I could have just a moment.
Yes.
Nothing.
Ms. Clark, do you have any redirect?
I do,
Okay.
Sir, you have defendant D up here still? You earlier described for us a heel print in blood, what appeared to be blood.
Yes, I did.
Do you see it in that photograph?
Yes, it's right below the leaves, directly. If I'm oriented correctly, I would be looking at this glove and foot from the west. It would be directly south of the glove, inches
Hi, critter.
away in a pool of blood.
Does the heel appear to be pointing away from the body of the victim?
Yes, it appears to be walking in a southwesterly direction. It would be walking towards the female victim.
Now, when you arrived at 360 Rockingham, was it still dark outside?
Yes.
By the time you were walking down that path at the south side of the property, where you ultimately found the glove, what was the lighting condition like in that area?
Very poor, even worse than it was out on the street.
And why was that?
The trees shadowed it and even darkened it more than the existing light would allow. In other words, night it would be much darker, and even during the day it would be darker than just being out in the sunlight.
So it was, in that shadow, were you able to, in that kind of darkness, sir, were you able to see whether or not there were any shapes or forms that were beyond the light of your flashlight?
No, and even more than that, I already passed 2 large indentations that went back several feet into the building structure, and I didn't know how many of those were yet to be seen going east. I was not familiar with the building, so.
Yeah, you pointed out those indentations, I think, earlier. They're indicated on the defendant's diagram. You see them here?
Yes, ma'am.
How deep were they?
Well, this first indentation was just maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and there was garbage cans here and a little bit of junk. There was a door to the garage that leads into the garage with a window in the top half. In this area here, it was several feet deep, and there was a area here that led to a crawl space. There was a voltage box either here or here. This was probably 5 feet deep. Then it continued solid, and I discovered that it was solid all the way back, and there was a window, one window at the last bungalow.
5 feet deep and approximately how wide?
Oh, 10 to 15 feet, and it's not only 5 feet here, it goes back farther, probably as much as 10 feet. Somebody could be secreted in that area.
So you went all the way back to the very end that's indicated in the diagram there?
Yes, all the way back where there's this diagram of shrubs. It's not overgrown as this is depicted. This area, fairly large, it's completely open, and it looked like like I said, a potting area for growing young plants so they can be transplanted into the landscape in the main house.
And you looked around back there as well?
Yes, I looked there in the shrubs and attempted to get as far back as I could on the other side of this fence. I couldn't tell what was back there, but I wasn't dressed in attire that I could really go too far.
So that was even after you found the glove. You continued back there?
Yes.
Looking for?
I was looking for a victim, a person who could have left the glove. What I saw in the glove I thought was blood, and that alerted me even more.
I have a bunch of them. I even have a couple from Florida and Connecticut.
Now, you earlier indicated that you saw the bloody shoe prints and the blood drops to the left of those shoe prints in a direction that seemed to lead away towards the alley of the rear of the residence at 875 South Bundy.
Yes.
Did that observation have any impact on the significance you placed on the blood on the door handle that you initially saw on the Ford Bronco?
Well, the blood to the left of a footprint would indicate that there was an injury to the left side of the body. The spot on the truck, the driver's side, you would open the door with your left hand. That could indicate that the person that left the scene was bleeding from a foot, an arm, a hand, from the left side of his body, and the spot on the Bronco could coincide with that injury. I might add that there could have also been someone that fled the scene, not being a suspect, and that was also in my mind, not knowing exactly what transpired at that time.
Right. So when you got to 360 Rockingham, did you believe that you were necessarily at the residence of a suspect?
No, I didn't.
I don't know, guys. It's just one point that I can't seem to get past yet. All these police are at his house because his Bronco was parked weird. Like, they jumped over, his Bronco was parked weird. They searched it, at least the outside, found blood, jumped over a wall, found this glove, getting everybody out of the house, all because his Bronco was parked crooked. That doesn't make any sense, though.
And why was it that you did not secure the residence for a search warrant before finding the glove?
Well, I think at that time, if we did that, I think we had enough of an emergency situation that I think we were obligated to, if we could, to preserve life if that was the situation, and that's what we attempted.
No, I mean, they stopped. They stopped because it was parked crooked. They didn't stop because there was blood. They didn't stop because they were going to tell him about Nicole. They stopped because it was crooked.
To do. If we would have taken the time, even a telephonic search warrant, we're still talking 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. This is not a situation where we had the time to stand out in the street and just wait and wonder. We had to do something.
So when you went over that wall, were you looking to gather probable cause, or were you looking to save lives?
Save lives.
I have nothing further.
I take it, Mr. Ullman, that you have some additional questions.
Yes,
Are they going to be lengthy?
they may be.
All right, it's 4:30 right now, so I think that we will stop at this point. We will continue with this tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I remind you, please do not discuss your testimony with anyone except the lawyers in this case.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may step down. Thank you very much. Kaplan, did you still want the court to intervene in the matter? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. No. Thank you.
I don't think so. Was it? Was this after the chase or before the chase? I don't know. When they saw the car crooked, that would make a big difference. Then I could get there.
Morning. We're once again on the record in the case of People v. Simpson. The defendant is present with counsel. The people are represented. Ms. Clark, for purposes of clarifying the record with regard to the specific items of physical evidence that we're dealing with in this motion, you had indicated to the court that the people were only going to be offering some items that were not recovered after the execution of the search warrant. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And those items are the glove, in essence, that was found.
Bill, I'm not going to lie. I would much rather be watching your stream right now. I was looking forward to it. There's still time.
In that pathway behind the guest quarters. Is that right?
That's one.
Some blood stains from the driveway area.
That's correct.
And the blood stain from the door of the
No. The Bronco was parked on the side of the road.
Bronco.
That's correct.
Any other items?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what would those be?
That would be the one of the blood stains leaving the crime scene at Bundy, at the Bundy address.
All right, but that's not part of this motion, I assume.
No.
Okay. So it's those three items of physical evidence from
I think Marsha's very pretty.
the Simpson home and grounds or vehicle that is the subject of the motion to suppress.
It might be, in general, yes, Your Honor, that's correct. It might be more than 3 items because there are a number of blood spots on the driveway.
Okay.
But collectively, that's correct. Those 3 places.
And those items are enumerated in the property report somewhere in items 1 through 11?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. I believe that the detective, Furman, is still on the witness stand. Sir, if you'd retake the stand, you've previously been sworn and remain under oath.
Your Honor, with respect to the limitation of the scope of this motion, we'd like to make it clear for the record that the defendant will then reserve a de novo hearing on the issues raised by the motion to quash the search warrant prior to trial. That is not being addressed in this motion.
That's correct. The people have indicated that they're not offering any of the items that were recovered in the execution of the warrant, and therefore the warrant would not be an issue in this proceeding.
Thank you. Detective Furman, we have located the notes that you made in the course of your investigation in the murder book at pages 00198 through 00200. Did you review those before you testified?
No, I didn't.
Would you like to review them?
I don't think it would be necessary. Maybe during the questioning, if you need to show it to me, I would
All
like
right. The notes begin with your observations upon your arrival at the scene at 02:10, right, in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Now, you indicate in these notes that Officer Risky received a radio call, quote, possible 459, suspects there now, 874 South Bundy. Is that a direct quotation of the radio call?
Well, as much as it was relayed to me, and at that time I didn't know the weight of that call, if it was part of the homicide scene or it was something independent. And that was Officer Risky giving me that information. I picked up on that. I just made a notation to question him later.
All right. possible 459 refers to a possible burglary, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it refers to plural suspects. Was it your understanding that there were suspects who were observed at the scene?
I had no other knowledge other than what he told me. I didn't pursue it at that point. He was just briefing us slightly on the scene, what he knew. Then he took us into the scene, so I just made a notation.
And you also noted where that original call came from, that a resident of 874 heard something across the street?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Resident of 874 heard something across the street?
That's just what Officer Risky said. Again, the way I take notes is I put a numeral by each notation, and then as I go back and start doing the investigation, I'll refer back to that note number and then write maybe as much as several pages on one area that I have to go back to. These are just quick notes that I made in the very first few minutes that I was at the crime scene.
Right, so these notes are actually prepared while you're there to keep track of all of your observations and
Yes,
information.
what to go back to, what I should be noting at that time. There's no measurements involved in those preliminary notes. That's the first run through the scene and talking to the officers.
Excellent. And these 3 pages are all of the notes that you took on the morning of June 13th. Is that correct?
Well, I was stopped. I was in the process of taking notes, putting my thoughts to paper, and I was told that Robert Homicide would be taking the case. I stopped taking notes at that point and gave those notes to Detective Phillips, who then passed them on to Detective Van Adder.
Okay, so essentially you stopped taking notes because you believed you were off the case. Is that correct?
No, I knew I was off the case. It was no longer my case, so I stopped there because the way that they conducted the crime scene or their notes, I would be given them mine and they would be taken over from that point. They review mine notes up to that point and then they continue making their own from the beginning of.
I really thought during the preliminary hearing that we would hear more of the good stuff and not just the boring stuff, because it's like the summary of why they're in court, right?
When they arrived at the scene.
Then the notes actually stop at 875 South Bundy.
Yes, sir.
You took no notes whatsoever of any of the events in which you participated at 360 North Rockingham.
That's correct.
When you left the scene at 875 Bundy and went to the Rockingham address, did you bring any of the evidence with you that you had encountered at the Bundy scene?
I touched no evidence and I authored no reports.
Now, you indicated yesterday that one of the reasons that your attention was drawn to the white Bronco was because it was parked rather strangely, I believe, as you put it?
Well, just when I was walking towards it, it was the front of the truck was facing my direction of travel, and it just looked a little strange the way it was parked.
All right. You indicated that the front was much closer to the curb and the back was out into the roadway?
Well, it was just it wasn't parked parallel to the curb. It looked like it was parked hurriedly or haphazardly.
And you indicated the wheels were turned in toward the curb?
They were turned in towards the curb, and that could be the way the vehicle was sitting with the rear end jutting out would give me that impression when I'm walking forward. I couldn't tell you how many degrees to the right they were.
All right. Your Honor, could we mark Officer Furman's notes as Exhibit E, Defense Exhibit E?
Right, and you say that consists of 3 pages?
3 pages?
Yes, it'll be E.
I'm handing you what we mark as Exhibit E. Are those all of the notes you took of your investigation in this case?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, we've also located among the photographs supplied to the defense 4 pictures of the Bronco automobile taken the morning of June 13th. If we could mark these Defense Exhibit F Your Honor,
Yes.
and they are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do those photographs accurately represent the position of the Bronco automobile as you observed it in the early morning hours of June 13th?
If I could point to the photos.
Photo 1 we previously saw. Photo 2 really doesn't show the direction I was walking in. Photo 3, it seems that the camera is more to the left. When I was looking at the Bronco, I was several feet back, and I believe I was more to the right of the vehicle.
Okay, hold on a second. That is not parked in a way as to have a police officer stop and search it. I don't, nope, I'm never going to get there. They don't have a right to stop for that.
Where the line of the vehicle seemed like the rear end was out a little bit more. As you can see here in photo 4, the right tire is about 4 inches onto the concrete part of the asphalt roadway, where the rear tire is completely on the asphalt with a couple inches to spare. And that's what I'm
Talking about it, it looked like it wasn't casually parked or carefully parked. It wouldn't be how I would probably park my vehicle. It just looked a little strange when I'm walking up on it.
All right, but these photographs do accurately depict how the car was parked.
I remember that it was more extreme, and I'm not sure that this photo shows the way my view of that was walking up towards it from...
I'm sorry, sir, but that photo shows exactly how it was parked, sir.
a greater distance from this and a little more to the right, but I would say it would be fair to say that it fairly
Are you
depicts...
suggesting the automobile was moved between the time you saw it and the time these photographs were taken?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just suggesting that where our photographer took the photos from, it doesn't really show exactly where I was walking. I was walking almost in the middle of the roadway, walking down more to the right of the vehicle. I'm not saying it was moved. It just seems that my view might have given me a more extreme angle than these photos show.
Okay. Now, when you walked up to the automobile, did you check to see if the engine was warm?
I touched the hood, and it was not warm, but I also didn't feel any moisture. Of course, I'm not sure how much of a dew there was that morning. I also didn't look at the lawn, so.
Okay. When you first observed the stain on the door, did the stain appear to be wet or damp?
I didn't touch it, and it didn't appear like it was flowing or moving. I would say it appeared to be dried.
Now, I asked you yesterday about some coffee stains, and you indicated you did not observe any other food stains or possible coffee stains on the car.
That's true. I didn't observe it.
We've located 3 different impound reports which appear in the murder book at 00108, 00110, and 00111. And I would ask that these be marked as exhibits G, 1, 2, and 3. Yes. Now, these are all vehicle investigation reports related to a 1994 Ford Bronco 3 CWZ 788. That's the Bronco in question, is that correct?
I believe it is. I don't recall the plate.
All right. Now, one of these reports is filled out when the automobile is moved, is that correct?
Well, yes, it could be filled out prior to, but it's generally yes when the impound's completed.
All right. And the first of these reports indicates June 13th at 7:30 in the morning. Were you aware of the car being impounded at 7:30 in the morning?
No.
The second of these reports, which refers to a time of June 13th at 3:30 in the afternoon, 15:30, notes special instructions, take vehicle to Print Shack, PAB across street of Parker Center, 2 coffee stains on hood, disregard, not related. What does that mean?
Officer Don Thompson, who was handling the security on the Rockingham gate, said that when the media was at the scene and there was a rush of activity, one of the news people running by or walking by placed a cup on the hood of the Bronco. They immediately grabbed it, admonished him, you know, obviously don't do that again. And he informed me that there was coffee stains. I believe he also informed other detectives at the scene of the same thing.
Now, had any yellow tape or crime scene tape been placed around the automobile?
No, and I believe the reason for that is we didn't want to draw more attention to the vehicle than we wanted at that point. We had 2 officers assigned specifically just to that vehicle to secure it. And they did that, and when the rush of media came by and the cup was put there, it was something that they really couldn't foresee and they really couldn't do anything about.
Okay. If we could mark these reports, Your Honor, as G1, G2, and G3, are these the vehicle reports?
I've never seen these reports, sir.
I want to take you back to your...
Sir, I might
entry.
add that if I could, I do recognize the name on the bottom of the one report. One of the authors of this report is Officer Thompson that talked to me at the scene about the coffee
And is his
stain.
name on the first of those reports, the 7:30 a.m. report?
No, this is the time of occurrence is 15:30. That's Officer Thompson's report. I have no knowledge about the other 2.
All right. When you were in the room of Mr. Kalin immediately after you went to the back of the premises at Rockingham, were there any windows in that back wall of Mr. Cato's room or Mr. Kalin's room? Let me look at the chart.
I can answer that, sir. There's no windows to that wall of Mr. Kalin's room.
All right. I want to have you, could we have Defense Exhibit 8? Your memory is there no windows in the back wall?
No, there was windows in the back wall, but there was no window at the wall where the air conditioning duct or west of that air conditioning duct. On that wall of Mr. Cato's room, no, there wasn't.
All right, well, let's have you refer to where in the wall the duct was.
My internet is shaky right now. I don't believe this. I don't believe this. I'm so mad.
Referring to Defense Exhibit A, would you point out where in that wall the air conditioning duct was?
Mr. Cato's room is the first bungalow. The air conditioning duct was probably just a little off center of this wall of his room, probably just to the right of his bed. There's no windows west of there. I'm not sure if there was a window for the bathroom. I'm positive there was a window, maybe 2 windows for Arnell's room, and I'm not positive in the back. I see a window that's depicted here, but I don't recall that.
Did you make any effort to look through those windows at all to see if anyone was back there?
To look through which window, sir?
The windows in the back wall of either the bathroom or Arnell's room.
No, I didn't look through there, no. I believe, excuse me, but I believe this window, the one window here, was the frosted type of opaque window, and I'm not positive, but This, I think, was a higher window, elevated past my point of view. I'm not positive on that.
All right. Would you like to write a W where you indicated there was a window in Mr. Cato's bathroom?
A little light of a pencil. You want a W where?
At the location where there was a window in Mr. Cato's room or the adjoining bathroom.
I don't recall a window in his bathroom. I said there possibly might have been one, but I know there was a couple windows when I went past the air conditioner, but I don't know if one of those was his window.
All right, so you don't recall ever observing in the quarters occupied by Mr. Cato a window?
No, I don't.
Now, in preparing your testimony for yesterday and today, did you confer with the district attorneys who are prosecuting this case?
Well, yes, we talked.
Was this just a conference between yourself and the district attorneys, or were the other detectives involved in the case present?
No, we didn't talk about the case in the presence of the detectives. In fact, at one point, Marcia and I just talked between ourselves, but it was nothing very pointed, just about the tactics of the defense and that everything's going fine. Just tell everything that you did, and you're doing fine.
All right. Now, was this after the motion to suppress was filed a week ago today?
I'm sorry, are you talking about which conversation?
The conversations with either Ms. Clark or Mr. Hodgman.
We discussed my portion of this case prior to the motion to suppress. They asked me just exactly what went down, and they said, well, we're comfortable with that, and that was pretty much it.
So you did not have any discussions of any of these events after the motion was filed on June 29th?
Well, we reiterated the same thing we talked about before. They said, what'd you do then? It was much the same as they would be bringing me through a testimony, and they felt comfortable with what transpired and what I had to say.
When you say they, who were you meeting with?
Mr. Hodgkin and Ms. Clark.
And were any other detectives present at that time?
No, I talked to them by themselves.
Now, if you were giving someone directions to go to Mr. Simpson's home on Rockingham, how would you direct them?
From the Bundy location?
Yes.
I would probably say go northbound on Bundy to, there's two ways. You could go eastbound on San Vicente past Cliffwood to Rockingham, or you could go up Cliffwood northbound from San Vicente. That would probably be the easiest way. Cliffwood northbound to Sunset, and Sunset east to either Bristol Circle, Rockingham, and then go northbound once again. Bristol Circle will eventually curve you around to Rockingham. Cliffwood, if you went northbound from Sunset, would eventually bring you to Ashford, and Rockingham would go directly to the house.
Wouldn't the simplest way to be just go up Bundy to Sunset and then go left to Rockingham?
Well, it's the simplest in some of those streets is the ones that have lights to get across Sunset, and the simplest way is not to get lost. If you give somebody Bristol Circle, it's kind of confusing. There's Bristol Court, there's Bristol Circle. It's kind of confusing.
Right. And finally, if you could reiterate for us the precise time as you remember it that you first observed the glove on the premises at 360 Rockingham.
It's pretty hard to be precise, but I'll get as close as I can. We arrived at approximately 5:10.
I'd just like to know the time that you observed the glove.
Okay, if you give me a moment. I'd probably say approximately 6:15 to 6:30.
6:15 to 6:30?
Maybe it could be as early as 6, but like I said, I didn't look at my watch at that point.
Thank you.
I bet you he didn't have a Swatch watch back then, so he couldn't look at his watch because it wasn't glowing in the dark like my Swatch watch did.
Ms. Clark, do you have additional questions?
Thank you, Ellen. The note that was pointed out to you by defense counsel just now concerning Officer Risky, that
Yes,
was a radio call that was given to Officer Risky?
No, I believe so. I had heard him indicate that he heard the call. I don't know if it was directed at his police unit or another unit, and he picked up the audio part of the call. He just informed me of that situation. I didn't know if it was related at that time.
Did you ever determine how a burglary call came to be placed concerning a murder investigation?
No. Once I was no longer part of the primary investigative team, I was at the direction of Detective Ben Adder and Lang, and they pretty much dictated the investigative path we were going to take, and that's why I gave them my notes and just followed their direction from the remainder of the time.
What, if any, impact did that information concerning the radio call received by Officer Risky have on your actions or your decisions on that night or early morning of June the 13th?
Well, it would lend the possibility that there was other people other than the two victims at the scene, which corroborated the footprints leading away from the scene. It would say that someone, a victim, a suspect, or I believe if there was a call that said suspects, it could have been one. It could also have been the struggle in front of the house. I had no idea because I never took it any farther.
So did that radio call received by Officer Risky have any impact on the decisions you made later concerning the case? What to do as the events unfolded through the early morning hours of June the 13th?
At the Bundy location?
Right.
Or? For me, no, because I was relieved of the responsibility of decision-making at that point. And as I said, I was just going at the direction of Detective Ben Adder and Lang.
Do you know whether they ever knew of that radio call that Officer Risky got concerning a burglary in progress?
I know they received my notes, so I assume that they read them and they did talk to Officer Risky. I was not privileged to be there when they talked to Officer Risky, so...
So you don't know what they found out about that? Or, all right.
No.
With respect to finding the glove, after you found the glove, what did you do? You saw the glove on the walk, then what did you do?
I continued eastbound on the path that went to the rear of the property, and I spent, I'm not going to say a considerable amount of time, I would estimate it to be about 15 minutes.
We need a few objections thrown in here. Come on.
Looking for a person that could have left that glove there, which really indicated that somebody was injured. I continued to look in all places that I believe a human could either secrete himself or collapse in that area, and then I returned to the front of the residence.
So you walked all the way back to that back area that you've indicated earlier on the diagram, shown here behind our, what's marked on the defense diagram as our Nell's room?
Behind that location, yes.
Then you walked all the way back up this path, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And all the way around through the driveway and into the front?
I believe there was, I believe Detective Phillips was standing in front of the residence, and I spoke with him.
And when you got inside, you said you spoke to the detectives?
Yes.
Which
I believe,
one did-
I'm sorry. I believe Detective Phillips informed Detective Van Adder and Lang of the discovery, and they came out to me in the front,
Did they come out one by one or all together?
one by one.
So did you go with them each time?
Yes.
And who did you go with first?
Detective Phillips.
And what was the route you took with him?
The same route that I took originally, from the front entrance, directly south in front of the garage, and then entering the path going eastbound, continuing down, explaining the areas and how and why I determined that the main house was separate by this corridor from the rest of the bungalows, and how the architecture changed, how I was describing that to him, and then how I looked down and saw the dark object 15, 20 feet in front of me, and then got closer, I realized what it was, and it was right almost exactly where Mr. Kalin described a crashing noise.
And the area on the wall where he described the crashing noise, was there any window near to the area he described hearing the noise come from?
No.
So then after taking Detective Phillips down to that area and describing everything that you saw, who did you take next?
Detective Van Adder?
And did you do the same thing with him?
Yes, exactly the same thing.
And so each time you went, you took the detective all the way down to where the glove was and brought them all the way back?
Yes.
And then did you do the same with Detective Lang?
Yes.
Did you take any of the detectives all the way back to the area behind Arnell's room that you described going to yourself earlier?
I don't believe so. I described to Detective Phillips, and I'm almost positive I did to both the other detectives, how as soon as I scooted underneath the air conditioner that pretty much covered the path, it was elevated, but it covered the path. I ran into the spider webs, and I told them that, and I told them I looked in the area, but I didn't see anything that would lend us to believe that anybody was back in that area.
When you said you scooted under the air conditioner, how did you have to stoop down? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, scoot down, and you don't have to get on your hands and knees, but you have to get down low. It goes on an angle. It's an air conditioner that sticks out, I don't know, 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and then it has braces that go at.
So we're on July 6th. We have to go through July 6th, 7th, and 8th for the prelim.
A 45-degree angle to the air conditioner that attaches to the wall at the bottom below it.
And after you took the last detective all the way back to show the glove, did you come back out to the front of the house?
Yes.
And what did you do then?
I didn't do anything. I just stood there and waited, and I went in and I heard a discussion by Detective Van Adder, and a comment made shortly thereafter about we're going to have to handle this like a crime scene.
Do you know approximately what time that was when you heard that discussion?
No, after this I came out front. To be honest with you, I was a little taken back by what had transpired. We didn't enter with...
This trial is 498 videos long. Well, the trial and the preliminary hearing is 498 videos long, and we are on number 15.
any intention of finding anything there. And I just kind of stood out there, and I was really kind of collecting my thoughts. When I found the glove back here on this pathway, I'd have to admit to you that the adrenaline started pumping, because I didn't really know what was going on, and no matter if I found a victim or a suspect, I still had some type of a very serious situation at that time, and I think I was coming down from that a little bit.
You mean, when you say the adrenaline, you mean from seeing the crime scene?
No.
From seeing the glove?
When I found the glove and actually realized that this glove was very close in description and color to the glove at the crime scene, my heart started pounding, and I realized what I had probably found. When that gets going and you never get a chance to run it off or get rid of it, you get kind of a downtime, and I think I was collecting my, not composure, but my thoughts a little bit out front.
And so while you were collecting your thoughts and relaxing after your discovery, you heard a discussion going on inside the house?
Yes, I walked into the front of the residence, and in the kitchen, Detective Lang and Van Adder were discussing what's been found. I believe Detective Phillips was there also, and they were discussing, that we've really got another crime scene here. And then I heard search warrant brought up. We're going to have to get a search warrant. Detective Van Adder said that. And I don't know exactly what time that was.
You were not in the frame of mind to examine your watch or look at a clock?
Like I said before, I was kind of taken back by the whole event, so we didn't go up there for this. And
Anything else the matter?
Yes. Mr. Owen?
Detective Furman,
Excuse me, sir. A hung jury is still an ending.
who was in charge at the Rockingham scene? Which of the 4 detectives?
Detective Van Adder.
And like yourself, Detective Phillips had been relieved of further responsibility in the case?
Well, at that time, there was actually 3 detectives that responded to the Bundy scene. Myself, Detective Phillips, and Detective Roberts. He got there after us. He was interviewing witnesses, I believe the witnesses that saw the dog. He had gone to West LA Station, so while we were there at the scene, we were all relieved.
Now, with respect to the excitement you felt at encountering the glove, you realized immediately that this may have broken the case?
Yes,
I don't think it was excitement.
Might have been me.
I was caught on a 2-foot path and a poorly lit with a little tiny flashlight by myself with no vest. And I must admit that I think the only reason I proceeded is I felt more that I might have had a victim than a suspect. I don't know why I thought that. Like I said, I did not believe the circumstances would unfold as they did when I led these detectives up to Rockingham. I continued.
If I would have watched any more than just that opening statement, I never would have played that trial. But the opening statement blew me away. I thought that was going to be so good, and it was just not.
Probably hoping that I could find some answer for this glove or somebody that had been injured or something, but it was more alert than excitement.
And the first person to whom you reported finding the glove was Detective Phillips, is that correct?
Yes, he was in front of the residence. He was the first person I saw, and I said, "Ron, come here, I got to talk to you."
And you took Detective Phillips back to see the glove before you even informed Detective Van Adder that the glove had been found?
Yes.
Right, so Van Adder learned about the glove, what, about a half hour after you found it?
No, I think it would be within 15 minutes, maybe
Well,
10.
you indicated that you spent 15 minutes after you saw the glove searching this area behind the house.
Oh, I thought you meant after I talked to Detective Phillips. Yes, after I did do that, and then I came and talked to Detective
And you
Phillips.
came to talk to,
Right.
to Detective Phillips and took him back?
Right.
That took what, about another 15 minutes?
10 or 15.
All right. So Detective Van Adder learned about the glove for the first time a half hour after you discovered it.
That could be very close to the time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nothing further.
Anything further, Ms. Clark?
Detective Furman, you're estimating times for us now, are you not?
Yes, I can't remember, outside of being at the crime scene on Bundy, I didn't look at my watch much at all that morning.
And at the Rockingham address again, are these estimates of time and the amount of time that elapsed between certain events?
Absolutely.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Anything further, Mr. Ullman?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Detective. Remind you that you are not to discuss your testimony with any other witness in this matter. You can discuss it with the lawyers if necessary, that's all. You may step
Yes,
down.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He does still make that noise when he walks.
You can call Detective Van Adder.
Mr. Ullman, exhibits G, 1, 2, and 3 are on the witness stand. Would you mind collecting those, please?
Sir.
All right, Detective, you were sworn yesterday in connection with these proceedings, so you may retake the witness stand. I remind you that you are still under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
State your name for the record.
Philip Van Adder.
Spell your last name, please.
V as in Victor, A-N-N-A-T-T-E-R.
Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Van Adder, tell us what you do for a living.
Yes, I'm a police detective, Los Angeles Police Department, assigned to Robbery Homicide Division, Homicide Special Section.
And how long have you been assigned to Homicide Special Section of the Robbery Homicide Division?
I've been assigned to Robbery Homicide Division for 15 years, the Homicide Special Section for about 8 years.
How long have you been on the force altogether?
25 and a half years this month.
And how many homicides have you investigated in those 25 and a half years?
Well, I've been assigned actually working homicides, started in 1973, and have probably been personally involved in over 200, and have probably been to or assisted in 500 to 600 crime scenes.
Can you tell us what the Robbery Homicide Division does?
I can tell you what the Homicide Special Section does, yes.
Okay.
We are a section set up to handle high-profile or very involved or serial-type murder investigations.
And in that regard, sir, with respect to the case now before the court, what is your role in this case?
What is my role?
Yes.
I was assigned this case at, I got the original phone call on the 13th of June at 3 o'clock in the morning, responded to the scene, and took charge of the investigation.
So you are one of the investigating officers in charge of this case?
That's correct, yes.
And how many others are there?
Well, there's my partner, Detective Tom Lang.
And is he also assigned to the Robbery Homicide Special?
Yes.
And you got the call, you tell us, at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I got the original phone call at my home at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's correct.
And where did you go pursuant to that call?
I was instructed to go to 875 South Bundy. I prepared myself and responded to that location.
What time did you arrive?
At 4:05 in the morning.
What did you see when you got there?
I was met by Detective Ron Phillips and Detective Mark Furman. Detective Phillips is the homicide coordinator for West Los Angeles Division. I was told that there was a double homicide at that location and that one of the victims had been identified as Nicole Simpson. Detective Phillips further told me that two small children had been taken from the residence and were presently in custody at the West LA Division.
Now, did someone walk you through the crime scene so that you could see what you had there?
Yes.
Who was that?
Detective Phillips gave me a walkthrough of the crime scene.
Now, when you say a walk through, did you step through the evidence?
No. Well, we approached the actual scene of the two victims through a planter area that would have been south of the actual location of the two victims. And
Go ahead.
And then after viewing that location, he gave me a walk through the walkway that headed west to the back of the apartment building that led to the alley.
So you stood from a position where you would not disturb anything in terms of the crime scene or the evidence in it.
Definitely. I was standing in the foliage in a planter.
Can you please describe for us the condition in which you found the victims in this case?
Yes, Nicole Simpson was lying at the entrance gate on the walkway right in front of the front step that stepped up to go up toward the residence. The gate was open, and Ron Goldman was lying directly north of her location in a planter area that would have been on the north side of the walkway.
Now, were you able to tell what the cause of death was at that point?
No, I could not. It appeared to be massive injuries. There was a lot of blood. Blood had actually drained and run down the walkway toward the sidewalk. There was a lot of blood there. I couldn't tell other than there was some type of massive injury.
Now, were you able to see any evidence near either one of the victims?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw at the feet of Ron Goldman a man's leather glove, left-handed leather brown glove. Just below that, which would have been just directly southeast of that, was a blue knit watch cap. Also, between the two victims, I saw a white envelope lying on the ground. There was a set of keys and a pager.
Did you go into any other areas of the crime scene to examine them other than that front area where you saw the victims?
Yes.
Where did you go?
Detective Phillips took me west on the walkway that would be on the north side of the residence to show me, and I observed bloody footprints appeared to be leading from the actual crime scene, the locations of the two victims, to the rear of the building along the walkway. I also observed, as he's showing me, as we're going through, blood droplets that appeared to be not associated with the two victims, as if the person leaving the bloody footprints was dropping blood from something, as they appeared to be straight down drops on the ground.
Did they appear to you, those blood drops, to be alongside the bloody footprints?
Yes, definitely.
Now, when we say footprints, were those bare footprints?
No, they were shoe prints.
Could you see a definite heel in those prints?
There was a pattern, yes, I could see a pattern.
And I'm sorry, did you say, to what side of the footprints did you see the blood drops?
The left side.
Thank you. Now, having made the observations that you did at the crime scene, sir, did you continue to confer with the West LA detectives, Detective Furman and Detective Phillips?
Yes, that's correct.
Why did you do that if this was your case?
Well, I was waiting for the arrival of my partner, who was approximately 20 to 25 minutes behind me. I instructed the two West LA detectives that we would take charge of the scene, and I waited for my partner to arrive to acclimate him with the scene also.
At some point, did you leave the scene of 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
Why'd you do that?
Well, a number of reasons. Knowing that one of the victims had been identified as Nicole Simpson. Knowing that her husband or ex-husband at that point was a very well-known person. That we had two children in custody, two minor children that had been taken from this very traumatic scene. We made a determination to go to Mr. Simpson's residence in an attempt to notify him of the death before the media got word of it, and to also make arrangements for the disposition of the two children that were his children.
So who went with you to the location of Mr. Simpson's residence?
There were three others beside myself and my partner, and Detective Furman and Detective Phillips.
Why did Detective Phillips and Detective Furman go with you?
They had been originally involved in the investigation. They were assisting us, and we went up there for a number of reasons. Again, I say, also knowing the close proximity of the crime scene to where Mr. Simpson lived, it was also my feeling, my belief, that we needed to check the welfare up there also. This was a very traumatic, bloody scene.
Tell me, sir, so you drove actually that night from 875 South Bundy to 360 Rockingham Avenue?
That's correct.
Can you estimate for us about how long it took you to get from 875 South Bundy to 360 Rockingham Avenue?
Probably not more than 5 minutes.
So what happened when you got to the Rockingham Avenue address?
We drove up Rockingham, north from Sunset Boulevard, to Ashford Street, turned right east and parked at the curb, and walked to the gate. And as I drove in, I noticed a white Ford Bronco parked at which would be the east curb of Rockingham. Parked on the Ashford south curb, and got out and attempted to utilize the intercom to raise someone in the home.
And the intercom that you're talking about, where was that located?
The intercom is located on the east side of the Ashford Street gate. And looking at this diagram, it would have been right in this area right here.
For the record, the witness has pointed to the area where what appears to be a wall indicated up by the Ashford Street meets the edge of the driveway that is to the right edge of the driveway, at that corner. Was that a button you pressed?
Yes, that's correct.
When you pressed the button, did you hear anything?
Yes, I could hear the phone ringing inside the residence.
Did you get any response?
No.
When you drove to the Ashford Street side, did you come up Rockingham first?
Yes, that's correct.
As you drove up Rockingham, did you notice whether there were any cars parked outside the Rockingham gate in front of the residence?
Yes, I did.
And what did you notice?
I noticed a white Ford Bronco parked at the east curb of Rockingham, just north of the Rockingham gate to the residence.
Showing you the exhibits that have previously been marked as collectively People's Aid. Can you tell me if you recognize what you see there in photograph A, B, and C?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That's the Ford Bronco that was parked at the curb.
So you rang the first time and you received no answer. What did you do next?
Well, we rang the bell for a period of time, probably 10 to 15 minutes, attempting to raise someone in a residence. There was a light on the bottom floor. It appeared to be toward the south side of the house. And there was also a light on in the upstairs portion of the home. We rang the bell for a period of time trying to get some response, and we didn't.
Could you estimate how long you rang the bell for without getting a response?
Oh, I believe it was in the area of 10 to 15 minutes, probably. During this time, I noticed a West Tech security sign, which is a private security company that works in that area. And I requested Detective Phillips to contact them to see if we could get a telephone number for the residents.
And did he do so?
Yes.
Did you have a phone with you? A mobile phone?
He did, I didn't.
Did he use that
Yes.
to make the phone call to West Tech?
Yes.
And after making that phone call, what happened next?
We continued to ring the bell. In the meantime, I walked back around while the other detectives were there, I walked back around and looked at the Ford Bronco and noticed that the Bronco was parked like it had been hastily parked at the curb, with the front end a little closer to the curb than the rear end. And Detective Furman was with me, or there, when I got there. And he directed me to look in the rear of the vehicle. In the rear there was a package that was addressed, I believe, to Orenthal Productions. There was a shovel and a piece of plastic wrapped up in it. I asked
The package that, I'm sorry, sir, but the package that you said was addressed to Orenthal Productions, did that mean something to you?
Well, yeah, it indicated to me that it was most likely Mr. Simpson's vehicle, because I knew his name was Orenthal.
Okay.
I asked Detective Furman to run a Department of Motor Vehicle registration check on the vehicle.
Did he give you the results of that check?
Yes,
And what was the result?
that the vehicle was registered to Hertz Corporation.
And what, if any, significance did that information have to you?
Well, I knew that Mr. Simpson was a spokesperson for Hertz Corporation. I'm trying to get some response, and we didn't.
Could you estimate how long you rang the bell for without getting a response?
Well, I believe it was in the area of 10 to 15 minutes, probably. During this time, I noticed a West Tech security sign, which is a private security company that works in that area. And I requested Detective Phillips to contact them to see if we could get a telephone number for the residents.
And did he do so?
Yes.
Did you have a phone with you? A mobile phone?
He did, I didn't.
Did he use that
Yes.
to make the phone call to West Tech?
Yes.
And after making that phone call, what happened next?
We continued to ring the bell. In the meantime, I walked back around
Thanks a lot, Lori. Now you gave us all deja vu.
while the other detectives were there. I walked back around and looked at the Ford Bronco and noticed that the Bronco was parked like it had been hastily parked at the curb, with the front end a little closer to the curb than the rear end. And Detective Furman was with me, or there, when I got there. And he directed me to look in the rear of the vehicle. In the rear there was a package that was addressed, I believe, to Orenthal Productions. There was a shovel and a piece of plastic wrapped up in it. I asked
The
Detective...
package that, I'm sorry, sir, but the package that you said was addressed to Orenthal Productions, did that mean something to you?
Well, yeah, it indicated to me that it was most likely Mr. Simpson's vehicle, because I knew his name was Orenthal.
Okay.
I asked Detective Furman to run a Department of Motor Vehicle registration check on the vehicle.
Did he give you the results of that check?
Yes,
And what was the result?
that the vehicle was registered to Hertz Corporation.
And what, if any, significance did that information have to you?
Well, I knew that Mr. Simpson was a spokesperson for Hertz Corporation. I believe it was his vehicle.
So you made the observations of the Ford Bronco.
Yes.
Then what?
Walked back around. By this time, West Tech had sent a unit to our location.
Did you speak to them?
Detective Phillips did.
In your presence?
Yeah, I was standing back. I didn't hear the total context of the conversation. But Detective Phillips told me that he was having a hard time securing a phone number for the location, and that they were sending a supervisor to the scene.
Did you or Detective Phillips find out whether West Tech had been given advance notice that the defendant was going to be out of town.
Yes.
And what was that information?
The information was that West Tech had no prior knowledge of any travel plans for the occupants of that residence. And they also informed us that there was supposed to be a live-in maid at the location.
Did you wait for a supervisor from West Tech to come out and give you the home phone number?
Yes.
And what did you do in the meantime?
We still attempted to ring the bell to raise someone in the residence. At that point, I was becoming a little worried. It seemed like that there were lights on. We knew there was supposed to be a maid there, and we were getting no response. During this period of time, Detective Furman came to me and directed me back to the Ford Bronco.
And what did he tell you? What did he tell you?
He told me that he saw what he believed to be blood on the car. And he directed me back to the vehicle and pointed out an area along the driver's side door handle of the car. I looked at it, and it appeared to be blood to me also. At that point,
Lori, did your deja vu give you a lottery number?
I told Detective Furman that I was really worried based on the fact that we had a very violent murder scene within 5 minutes of Mr. Simpson's residence. We had no knowledge of any travel plans that he had. The security company was not notified. There was supposed to be a live-in maid there. There were lights on in the residence, and there appeared to be blood on the outside. I became very concerned at that point.
Now, at some point, did the West Tech supervisor arrive?
Yeah, he was there. He was there. He came. He gave a phone number to Detective Phillips.
And did you dial that phone number?
Detective Phillips did with his mobile phone, yes.
What was the result of that?
We got an answer phone from inside the residence indicating the voice on the answer phone something to the extent, "This is OJ. I'm not here, leave a message," or something like that.
So there was no response using the
No.
home phone?
No, there was an answer phone.
So at this point, having received no response through phone calls to the house or ringing at the gate, with lights on in the house, and all that you learned from West Tech, you saw the blood on the Bronco.
That's correct.
What did you decide to do?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the form of the question.
Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Ullman apparently is handling this part of the
No, I'm
meeting.
going to do this.
You're going to do
Yes. So I would make an objection at this point in time that the question, 90% of it, as we stated in this testimony, the question was, what did you do next? Motion to strike the question.
well, the question's not evidence.
No, I understand that, but we object to the form of the question.
Ms. Clark,
I do not object to your tie, sir. I like it.
I really am paying attention. You don't have to repeat everything.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I didn't mean to indicate that you weren't.
All right.
I was just making a foundational showing with the officer to bring him along. But-
All right.
So based on all you knew, what did you decide to do?
I conferred with my partner very briefly, told him my concerns, and made a decision that we should go in there to check and see if everything was okay.
What were your concerns, sir?
Well, my concern was, again, we were within 5 minutes of a very, very brutal murder scene. I knew that the scene was connected with Mr. Simpson because it was his ex-wife and children were there. After arriving there and learning that no one had any knowledge of any prior travel plans, seeing lights on in the residence, being told that there should be a live-in maid, I was concerned that something had occurred there, whether I had a second murder scene, whether I had someone injured, whether I had someone that was stalking Mr. Simpson and his wife, whatever. I become concerned that someone could be hurt or injured in that location.
At that point, how long had you been outside the residence at 360 Rockingham attempting to reach someone inside?
I would have to estimate that, and I would say in the vicinity of 40 minutes.
Did you make any attempt to verify whether the blood, what you thought was blood on the Bronco, was indeed blood?
Yes, after I was shown the area and come to the conclusion that it looked like blood to me, I requested a criminalist to respond to my location, knowing that regardless of what I had there, whether I had another scene, someone injured, or whatever, there was going to have to be collection of evidence. So I requested a criminalist respond to my location.
And to confirm or refute what you thought was blood?
Exactly, yes.
So at that point, what did you decide to do?
Go over the wall.
Did you go over the wall?
No, no, I asked Detective Furman to. He's younger and I believe probably a little more athletic than me, so I asked him to go over the wall.
And he did?
Yes.
When he did, what happened next?
He opened the gate by releasing a hinge, and we walked to the front door of the residence. Knocked on the door several times. Got no response.
You knocked, after knocking several times and getting no response, what did you do next?
Again, I still had the concern that this could be a second crime scene, a second murder scene. So we began checking the property to ensure that no one was hurt, injured, or not a second scene there. So we moved from the front door area around the north side of the residence to check the area to make sure no one was down or whatever, and moved to the back of the residence.
For the record, the witness was pointing to the path indicated by two parallel lines curved to what appears to be an indication of foliage on the illustration on the Ashford side of the residence. And where did you go when you went up through that Ashford side of the residence?
I was actually behind. My partner and Detective Phillips were in front. And as I walked through, I noticed a pool area, a tennis court area behind, and I was looking to see if I could see anything on the grounds as I'm going back.
What do you think? What do you mean by anything? What were you?
Any persons down? Anybody hurt? Anything? I didn't really know at that point what I had or what I was looking for.
Did you? So you were just walking back there and scanning the area?
Yes, as I walked back on the walkway.
Was it lit back there? What was the lighting like?
No, it was dark.
Where did you go?
I followed Detective Phillips and my partner, Detective Lang, to a guest house area, which is at the rear of the location on the south side of the property.
Do you see that indicated on the defendant's exhibit?
Yes, I do.
Can you point it out for us?
Yes, I crossed along the back of the residence between the pool and the home into this area.
That's right. Can you point that out?
Yes, we came down the walkway around the back of the residence, observed this area, and walked over here and started to knock on the doorways.
And is that the area on the diagram marked Cato's room?
That's correct, yes.
Were you standing at the door of Cato's room when someone knocked?
I was standing back. I was up, there's, I believe, 3 steps that go down to a walkway to the door. I was standing up at the top of the steps when Detective Phillips knocked on the door.
What happened next?
The door was answered fairly quickly by, turned out to be Brian Kalin. Detective Phillips asked him if there was anybody else on the property, and he said, yes, Arnell Simpson was in the room next door, which would be the room which would be directly south of where he was at.
On the defense diagram?
Yes.
And is that marked as Arnell's room on the diagram?
That's correct.
Prior to doing so, did he or you or anyone in your presence inform Cato that what was going on, what had transpired?
No one did in my presence, no.
Do you know what, if anything, they gave him as a reason for needing to contact someone who could gain access to the main house?
You know, I didn't talk to him at that time. I don't really know.
You don't know what the conversation
No.
was with him? After this Cato directed you to Arnell's room, what did you do?
I followed my partner. My partner knocked on the door, and it was fairly quickly opened by Arnell Simpson.
So you did not remain with Cato.
No.
Did anyone?
Detective Furman, I believe, remained with Cato at that point.
When you went to Arnell's room, what happened?
She answered the door, and I believe Detective Phillips had come up, and Detective Phillips told her that we needed to get in touch with her father. Did she know where he was at? And she responded, she answered the question with another question. She pointed toward the house and says, "Isn't he here?"
Indicating the house when he said here.
Yes. And
And
I asked her, I says, "Well, is he? I don't know. Is he here?" And she looked sort of quizzical, and she says, at that point, I believe myself, I asked her, "Well, do you have a key? Can we check and see if your father's here? We need to get in touch with him." And she says, "Yes, I have a key. Let's go into the house." And she took us into the house.
Did you or anyone in your presence inform her of why you were there in these early morning hours asking about her father?
I believe she was informed as we walked toward the house by my partner that we were investigating a double homicide that involved Nicole Brown.
Was there any indication given to her at her door of the guest unit, that there was something going on, some emergency?
Yeah, that it was an emergency, that we needed to contact her father.
So she opened the door with a key
Yes,
and invited you in?
yes.
Once you got in the house, what did you do?
I immediately asked her, knowing that there was supposed to be a maid there, I asked her, where is the maid's quarters? Isn't there supposed to be a maid here? And she took me through the back of the house into the kitchen to an area off the utility room that would be on the south side of the kitchen.
Why did you ask her to do that, take you to see the maid?
Because I
One of them is annoying, but the other two are A-okay.
was worried. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know whether the maid was there, whether she was injured, whether she'd been murdered or what. I needed to find out.
So Arnell took you to the maid's bedroom?
She took me to the room, opened the door, and you could look in and see that there was no one there.
Did you look to see whether there was any signs of struggle or violence that occurred there?
There didn't appear to be in that area of the house, no.
Now, why was it that you asked to go into the house to check on the whereabouts of the defendant?
To try and find out if he was in the house, or if the maid was in the house, or if anybody was in the house.
But you received no response when you called the phone and rang the bell on the intercom. Didn't that tell you that he certainly was not at home, or the maid was
No.
not at home?
I just tried to Google how many maids were murdered in 1994, and Google has nothing, guys. So, hey, maybe he does have a real concern. Maybe there were a lot of maids murdered in 1994.
No, not at all. Going back again, we had knowledge that West Tech had no prior knowledge that there was any travel plans. We had knowledge that there was supposed to be a live-in maid. We had just come from a very violent murder scene. We see what we believe to be blood. We could have had a second murder scene there, or we could have had someone injured there. We needed to check that.
So you were inside the house with Arnell after seeing the maid's room. What did you do next?
She came back into the kitchen area where my partner and Detective Phillips was, and this is all happening very quickly. She believed she told Detective Phillips that she could find out her father's location by calling his office. They would always know where he was at. And she placed a phone call.
Now, while she was placing that phone call, where were you?
I had moved back toward the back of the house. I was intending on going out to look around the grounds
What for?
to see if there was anybody hurt or injured there.
Where were the other detectives?
Detective Lang was with Detective Phillips, and Detective Furman was, I believe, still in the back with Brian Cato.
Now, you say Detective Lang and Detective Phillips. Where were they?
They were in the kitchen area with Arnell Simpson.
Yay,
With Arnell.
Vicky.
Did you search the house?
I briefly looked as I moved back toward the back. I didn't see anything unusual in that portion of the house. And shortly thereafter, Detective Furman came to me and says, hey, you've got to talk to, he was calling him Cato, Brian Cato. Listen to what he has to say.
When I say did you search the house, did you go upstairs?
No.
Look around?
That is a very good question and a very valid question. And no, Raven is Raven.
No.
Did you go into the den area or the living room areas or the dining room areas?
I could see the majority of the downstairs of the house from where I was at.
Did you go to look under cushions or in cabinets or in
No.
linen closets?
No.
So the nature of your search, quote unquote, was that you walked to the back of the house and looked around to make sure you saw no one.
Exactly. I was looking for people, not other things.
People, not evidence.
Yeah.
Were you present in the house while Arnell made the phone call to try and locate her father?
I believe at that point when she was making the phone call is when I started walking toward the back, and was shortly thereafter approached by Detective Furman, who directed me to sit down at the bar area and talk to Cato.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
What did Cato tell you?
Well, prior to that, Detective Furman had told me that Cato had told him that he'd heard a very loud noise on the south side of his room, and that he was going to go back there and check and see if everything was okay. And he told me, ask him or have him tell you about this noise that he heard. And I sat down there and talked with him, and he told me that that evening he had heard a very loud thumping noise outside, that he thought it was an earthquake, and it had actually moved the picture on the wall of his room.
Having heard that,
It is so hard to sit through this preliminary hearing. I want to get to the trial so bad. I wish they would hurry up.
what did you think?
Well, again, I had the same suspicion. It's very unusual to hear loud thumping noises outside your bedroom. I thought possibly somebody was hurt or somebody was down out there, and that's why Detective Furman was going to that location.
But inside
to check.
is a different story.
At that point, when you sat down and talked to Cato, had contact, to your knowledge, yet been made with the defendant?
I believe it was being made at that point.
Were you privy to that conversation?
No, I was not.
And when I say that conversation, I mean between the detectives and the defendant.
No, I was not.
At the point that you spoke to Cato, what were your concerns?
My concerns that, again, knowing all the information I knew, my concern was that someone was hurt, someone had been killed, someone had been injured at that location.
After receiving that information from Cato, what happened next?
While I talked with Cato in the bar area, which is toward the rear of the house, there was a bar area set up. Within probably 10 to 15 minutes, Detective Furman came to me. And
No,
said,
keep going,
"You
Lori. I
gotta
love
come
it.
with me and see this." And he led me to the south side of the house.
I'm
Detective
enjoying
Furman
it.
did that?
Yes.
Do you know whether before he took you outside, you saw him leave the house with anyone else?
Detective Furman?
Yes.
The last time I saw Detective Furman, he was by himself.
Then you were not privy to his movements, I take it.
No.
Okay. Where did he take you?
Do you want me to show you with the pointer?
Sure.
He
On the
took me-
defense exhibit, the defense diagram?
Yes. He took me from the back area of the house around the north side, across the front, and into a small walkway on the south side of the residence, which would be the common wall that connects the main residence with the guest house residence on the south side here.
He didn't take you out the front door?
You know, I believe you're right. I believe he did take me through the house and out the front door, now that I think about it. There was a lot of movement going on. But I think you're right. I think we walked from the back through the front door and came around.
But you could,
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the point of the question. Clearly was obviously leading and suggestive. The officer now is saying, yes, you're right. That he's referring to the leading and suggestive nature. It's totally improper. Should not have been asked. The answer should be.
Your Honor, I think a simple...
Overrule, Ms. Hope.
Oh,
All right. We are going to take the morning break at this time. It is a little bit after 10:15.
Did anybody hear what he said? Because my son's playing Overwatch, and I missed it, and I wanted to hear what that objection was. Was it him repeating? What was it?
For 15 minutes. I'll remind you, please do not discuss your testimony with anyone, and we'll continue in 15 minutes.
Tell Raven to keep it PG? Come on. I don't think it was Raven that was broken. Don't worry, Raven. I got your back. How do you get a 21-year-old to move out? Turn off the internet.
All right, we're once again on the record in the case of People versus Simpson. The defendant is present with counsel. The people are represented. Detective Van Adder is on the witness stand. I remind you that you're still under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Clark.
thank you, Your Honor. May I interrupt very briefly? I just
Yes.
received the curriculum detail and certainly going to be calling on the blood work recommended, so I'm handing it to counsel now. And Detective Van Adder, you indicated that you went to the south side of the property, you indicated the area that you went to with Detective Furman on the defense diagram.
Yes.
And what did you find there?
Detective Furman pointed out a man's leather glove to me.
Showing you the exhibit that's marked as People's 9 for identification.
Do you think that that hair is naturally curly or a perm? I think it's naturally curly, but I don't know. I can't tell.
Can you tell me if you recognize what's being shown in these photographs?
Yes, I recognize that.
What?
That's the walkway along the south side of the residence that has a chain link fence as a property boundary. And the C, D, and E represent the glove that was lying on the walkway there.
And does that represent, do those pictures in C and D depict the original condition in which that glove was found
Yes,
and location?
yes.
Was that glove significant to you?
Yes, it was.
Why?
It appeared it was a right-handed brown leather glove that appeared to be a match for the glove that the left-handed glove I'd seen at the original crime scene.
Now, after you saw that glove, excuse me, strike that. You were with Detective Furman when you saw that glove, is that what you said?
Yes, he took me back there.
Did you walk back out with him?
I believe I did. He went to get, I believe, Detective Lang or Detective Phillips to also show it to him.
So he took each of you back there to show the glove?
Yes.
Now, by the time you saw the glove, sir, well, let me ask you this. Can you point out the route you took back after you saw the glove?
After I saw the glove?
Right. After you saw the glove, where did you go?
Yes, I came from the location back in here. I came back into the front and onto the driveway out in here.
When you arrived at the location of 360 Rockingham, can you describe what the lighting conditions were in the sky, I mean, not the house?
When I first arrived there?
Yes.
It was dark.
By the time you had seen the glove and come back onto the driveway, what was the lighting like?
It was pretty light by then. It had begun to dawn and broken. It was light.
In that growing light, were you able to make any further observations?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw originally what appeared to be a blood droplet in the driveway. And I walked west in the driveway and observed several others that appeared to be leading from the area of where the car was parked.
And by the car, you mean?
The Ford Bronco.
And the blood drops, where did they appear to be leading from the Ford Bronco?
To the front door of the residence.
Showing you what's been marked as people's age. Do you recognize what's being shown in this photograph, these photographs? Excuse me.
Yes, I do.
I'm directing your attention specifically now to D, E, and F.
Yes.
What's being shown there?
Those are droplets of a red stain, ultimately determined to be blood, that were found in the driveway of the Simpson home.
Showing you also a series of photographs that have been marked as people 6. Do you recognize what's being shown in these photographs?
Yes, I do.
I'm directing specifically your attention, sir, to photographs D, E, and F.
Yes.
What's being shown there?
That shows the driveway leading from Rockingham Avenue to the front door of the residence.
And you see little, let me pull this with the cord. I'll help you see, Ron. In D, E, and F, I see little, what appear to be little pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What are those?
Those are identification.
I love my Cozy Co. I love it.
Numbers that are completed and placed there by the criminalist at my direction to photograph and show the location of the blood droplets.
So those tags marked where blood droplets were found?
That's correct, yes.
Caruso Curlers and Aquanet. Caruso Curlers.
If you know, sir, what time was it when you made the observation of those blood droplets in the driveway after you'd just seen the glove?
Again, I would have to estimate that. I believe it was around 6:45 or so in the morning.
Now, backing up for a moment, at the time just prior to the glove being found, what were you trying to do? What was your state of mind with respect to what you were doing there at 360 Rockingham just before the glove was found?
We were there to ensure that that all the occupants were safe, that a notification was made of the death of Nicole Brown, and that a disposition was made for the children that we had.
And to that end, I think you indicated before you were trying to locate the defendant.
Yes.
What steps did you take to locate the defendant while you were inside the residence?
I looked around the bottom area of the home, and at that time, telephone calls were being made. And during that period of time, I was informed that, I believe by my partner, that Mr. Simpson had been located in Chicago.
Now, when that was going on, what were you doing?
I was between the kitchen area and the bar area with Cato.
So this was all these events were kind of happening at once?
Yes. We were actually spread out. We were not all together all the time. And all these things are happening all at the same time. They
That
were
was
not a sequence
Aquanet,
of events, but
right there.
the conglomeration
Right-
of events that was occurring.
Right there. Aquanet.
So while you were doing one thing, the other detectives were doing other things, and you were kind of all working at the same time.
Exactly.
After you saw the glove and on your way back saw the blood drops, then what was your state of mind with respect to what you had to do there at 360 Rockingham?
My knowing at that point that Mr. Simpson was in Chicago, failing to find any evidence of any form.
I'm not stupid enough to have pictures taken of me doing whatever I was doing at that period of my life.
Forced entry or anybody injured or hurt at the location. I then changed. I began to feel that I had a scene there that was connected to the crime scene at 875 South Bundy.
And in that regard, what did you do?
I instructed Detective Furman and other personnel at the scene there that this was now a protected scene, that it needed to be protected for investigation, and that I was going to secure a search warrant for the residence.
Now, had the criminalist arrived yet?
No.
So you had already secured the location for the purpose of securing a search warrant before the criminalist got there?
Yes, I did not leave the location at that point. I waited for the arrival of the chemist for a couple of reasons. I wanted to be sure that what I was seeing was blood, and I wanted to be sure that the evidence was protected. And in the Los Angeles Police Department, at murder scenes or crime scenes, criminalists collect and protect the evidence.
And that glove that you saw on the south side of the property that you've earlier identified in the photographs, were you concerned about loss of evidence on that glove?
Oh, definitely. The glove was in the elements, was outside. There could possibly be trace evidence on it, fiber, hair, what have you. Also, there was an animal, a dog, running loose in the residence lawn. And I wanted to make sure that it was protected before I left that scene.
Now before, excuse me, strike that. While all this was going on, do you know where Arnell was?
I believe she was in the house.
Was there still some effort being made at that time, if you know, to help the children be placed somewhere?
Yes.
Did the children ever arrive at the residence?
Yes.
Do you recall when?
I believe it would have been prior to 7:30, because that's when I asked for the place to be secured, totally secured.
When you say totally secured,
Do
then
it again. Do it again.
what
Do
do
it
you
again.
mean by that?
I asked Arnell and a friend of hers, Al Cowlings, that she'd call to help her pick up the children, if there was a place that they could go away from the residence to eliminate any possible contamination of any evidence that may be in the house. And they said yes. And at that point, I asked them if they would mind doing that.
Do
and
it
they said
yourself.
no.
Do you know when, so did, sorry, do you know if Mr. Collins came and brought the children with him to 360 Rockingham?
No, I believe the sequence of events on that is, I believe a phone call was made to Mr. Cowlings after notification had been made to Mr. Simpson, who instructed, I believe, my partner to release the children to his daughter,
Arnell?
Simpson.
I can't hear you when you have straight hair.
I believe she called Mr. Cowlings. He responded to the residence and took her to West LA to pick up the children.
What time did you leave the residence to secure this, to obtain a search warrant, sir?
Approximately 7:30.
At what point did you secure the house for the purpose of obtaining that search warrant?
Just prior to that, I asked him to leave. Asked them if they had a place to go to. I had the evidence protected earlier than that outside. In fact, I believe the criminalist arrived there shortly after 7 o'clock. And I showed him the physical evidence outside and left him instructions that it was to be protected, marked and photographed, and that the fact that there was a dog running loose on the compound, so to be very careful to protect the evidence.
So let me ask you this. What was the time frame between seeing the glove and the blood drops in the driveway and then securing the house for a search warrant?
Well, it's not a long time. I would say no more than 30 minutes total.
Could be less?
It could be, yes.
Okay. Were you looking at your watch to time every event that occurred?
No.
And so are the times you're giving us estimates?
Yes.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, sir, was when you secured the house, when you made the determination to secure the house, was A.C. Collins already there, or did he come up later, if you know?
He was there because I spoke with him.
Do you recall seeing any children in the house before you decided to secure the house for a search warrant?
No, I recall seeing the children leave, but I didn't see them prior, I don't think.
You saw them leave from where?
From the home there.
Oh, you did? You mean from 360 Rockingham?
Yes, that's correct.
Who was taking them out?
Al Collins and Arnell Simpson.
But you didn't see how they got to the home?
No.
And that was when they were leaving pursuant to your request so that you could secure the house for the search warrant?
Yes, that's correct.
Are they talking about how many hairs they need again?
I have nothing further.
Mr. Shapiro.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Detective Van Adder. Or
think
good
it's good.
mid-morning. Good mid-morning. We haven't taken an afternoon.
Good morning, Mr. Shapiro.
Detective Van Adder, with your experience as a Los Angeles police officer, are you one of the more senior detectives in your unit?
If I had a guess, I would say absolutely he bonded out.
Yeah, I believe only my partner has more time than I do in our unit, yes.
So between the two of you, you are the two most senior ranking people in homicide in Los Angeles Police Department, isn't that correct?
No, in
As
our
far as-
unit.
As far as detectives in your homicide unit.
Yes, in our 12-man unit, yes.
And your unit is the special unit.
It's named Homicide Special Section, yes.
And it's special because you investigate special situations.
We investigate certain type cases, yes.
That are somehow defined as special.
Well, that's not always the case, Mr. Shapiro. A lot of times we handle any type of case. If there's an overload at one of the areas and they need help, we go pick up their cases too. So that's not totally true.
But in general, you told us if there is a serial murderer, that would come to your special unit.
Yes,
And if there was a high-profile person who was involved in a murder, that would come to your unit.
most likely, yes.
And if there were murders of prominent political people, that would come to your unit.
Yes, most likely.
What other types of things would come to your unit that would be categorized as special, not overflow?
very, very involved cases that the homicide detectives at the divisional level
I Googled it.
don't have the proper time or manpower to investigate those type cases.
So you get resources and time above and beyond what detectives in the substations get.
I don't know that I don't believe that half of that statement is probably true. We probably have more time than the average detective. I don't believe we have any more resources than anybody on the department would have.
Let's, for a minute, focus on the resources that you have out of your unit.
Okay.
You were familiar with the time Mr. Simpson surrendered with Mr. Cowlings to the Los Angeles Police Department on Friday, were you not?
Yes, I was. When he surrendered?
No. He came back to the Rockingham house, did he not?
I'm familiar when he was taken into custody, that's correct.
And when he was taken into custody, did he, in fact, surrender to the police?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't at the scene. I know he was taken into custody, though.
Are you aware of what took place at the scene?
I believe, yes.
And at the scene, how many members of the Los Angeles Police Department were there?
I don't know, Mr. Shapiro.
What would be your estimate?
There were quite a few. I don't know.
More than 10?
Oh, I would think so, yes.
More than 20?
I don't know. I don't honestly know.
As the senior ranking detective in charge of this case, you oversee all aspects of this case, do you not?
We have a hand in all aspects of it. However, that situation that you're talking about there is a tactical field situation that is handled by field supervisors, not by detectives. That would have been handled by someone else.
Let me just ask you generally in terms of your observations and in terms of your knowledge as to how the police department works. If it was reported that there were in excess of 100 police officers there, would you say that would be a fair reporting?
I'm going to object to the relevance of this.
Sustain.
Your Honor, may I just be heard on that?
All right.
This is very, very important foundationally to show resources that are available in an emergency situation and resources that are available to this detective and resources that were used at the time that he was dealing with the situation on Rockingham.
Same objection, Your Honor.
The objection to sustain, Mr. Shapiro, is to the number of officers that were present at
Thank
the
you.
Friday night incident.
I take it that you have special training to have the classification of being a special unit detective.
No, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that's based on a person's work history and experience.
What about special abilities?
I would not be the one to ask that question if I have special abilities.
Well, I don't want you to be modest. Very, very important foundationally to show resources that are available in an emergency situation and resources that are available to this detective and resources that were used at the time that he was dealing with the situation on Rockingham.
Same objection, Your Honor.
The objection to sustain, Mr. Shapiro, is to the number of officers that were present at
Thank you.
the Friday night incident.
I take it that you have special training to have the classification of being a special unit detective.
No, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that's based on a person's work history and experience.
What about special abilities?
I would not be the one to ask that question if I have special abilities.
Well, I don't want you to be modest.
I take a lot of pride in my job, Mr. Shapiro. Yes.
And you wouldn't be in that important position if you didn't have the credentials, the experience, the knowledge, and the background to have such an important detective job, would you?
That's probably true, yes.
And as such, you are familiar, are you not, with the procedures that are mandated by the Los Angeles Police Department for investigative techniques in homicide cases, are you not?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Los Angeles Police Department chronological record form 3.11.6?
Yes.
And is that something that is used to record in depth the chronological record of the investigation in a homicide case?
The chronological record is a record that's used to, as time permits, to make a chronological entry on a log as to activities that have taken place in that investigation.
And doesn't that form require the recording of the dates and times of the initial notification and of all investigative contacts and processes?
It would be impossible to list all investigative dates and processes.
My question is,
The majority, yes.
Isn't that what the manual that you're trained under and the policy requires?
It may state that. However, that record is used as time permits in an investigation to record functions and activities that have occurred in that investigation.
My question is, does it state that?
I don't know the exact wording.
Do you have Form 3.11.6 that you used in this case?
I believe my partner has kept a chronological record on just regular paper. I don't think we have the chronological record in the case.
Would you take a moment to review your materials and see if you have such a record?
I think I just answered that. I believe my partner kept a chronological record on regular white paper instead of using the form because the form wasn't available when we first started the case.
But
we didn't have it in our possession.
You say you think. Would it help you to refresh your memory?
I know he has, Mr.
So
Shapiro.
you're sure that you don't have
I'm
this form?
positive, yes.
So the chronological record was kept by your partner on a piece of blank white paper?
Yes, he's kept
Again,
it.
objection, irrelevant. What does this have to do with the motion to suppress?
I assume that we're heading in some
Yes.
direction here.
Yes, we are here.
All right. Do you want to make an offer of proof about this chronological record as it relates to this motion?
Yes, Your Honor, that we will show that improper procedures were followed from the very beginning of this investigation until the time that Detective Van Adder has testified, that proper forms and procedures as outlined by the Los Angeles Police Department have not been followed, that times, dates, and records of events that should be recorded are not recorded, and quite frankly, Your Honor, this will go to the credibility of Detective Van Adder and his testimony here today.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
I fail to see how the use of a particular form or the use of a blank page in lieu of that form has anything to do with the propriety of the officer's conduct in searching the residence at 360 Rockingham. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I just don't see the connection. The officers used what they could at the time that they could under a pressing need and an urgent situation. The issue was the information required to be recorded on the chronological record recorded in some manner, not whether they used a form that was pre-printed or not. And I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I just can't see the relevance of this line of questioning to whether or not proper procedures were followed with respect to the decision to go over the wall and do a cursory search of the grounds.
Well, with reference to the utilization of specific LAPD forms or procedures that don't present constitutional issues, I really don't see the relevance of whether every I was dotted and every T crossed. However, with regard to whether there's impeaching information within or missing from some of these records, there could indeed be some relevance. I'm just, I guess, going to have to hear a question by question. You make your appropriate objections, and I'll make the rulings at the time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Have you reviewed the chronological record that was done by your partner?
No.
Would you take a moment, please look at that, please?
Certainly.
Do you have one available?
No. My partner has the books in the hallway.
Okay, maybe the district attorney might
If we
be
could
able-
get them from him, I could.
Or maybe the district attorney might have a copy here.
He's there. He's about to pop in the camera. Hold on.
It's a
Oh, I'm a liar.
possibility.
There he is. Kardashian is there. He's not doing anything right now. He's just been sitting in the background the whole time.
Detective Van Utter, are you familiar with something known as a homicide book, or in the vernacular, a murder book?
Yes.
And is that something that is routinely prepared by the Los Angeles Police Department?
Yes.
And is part of that murder book the chronological record?
Yes.
Do you know where to find the chronological record in the murder book?
Yeah, it's in section 1.
Would you look for that, please?
Okay.
Have you located the chronological record?
Yes, I sure have.
And how many pages does it consist of?
7 to date.
7 to date.
Yeah, 6 and 3/4 to date.
And there's, by policy, to be a chronological record for each crime scene. Is that correct?
No, there's normally one chronological record kept for the case.
For the case. So that
Yes.
that would include then the crime scene at Bundy,
Yes.
what you later found to be the crime scene at Rockingham,
Yes.
and the crime scene in Chicago.
Well, that was a separate investigation. We were not privy to what was going on in Chicago.
You didn't have any detectives there?
We did, but we were not personally involved in that. We had no information at that time what was going on there.
Well, you say you were not privy to it, so the Chicago Police Department didn't tell the LAPD what was going on in Chicago?
No, you're asking a question. May I explain that question?
No, you can answer my question.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, the witness should be allowed to explain his answer, especially because he's being questioned as an expert in his field.
Well, I think he's trying to give an answer, but I don't think you're going to try to explain Mr. Shapiro's.
No. I'm going to try to explain the answer to his question.
That we would like.
We have a 2,000-mile separation. We have detectives with instructions to go to Chicago and complete an investigation, while my partner and myself are working here in Los Angeles. We did not have a constant communication with the detective back there, so I would say that I was not fully aware of everything that was going on back there.
Would you say that this is under your jurisdiction as part of your investigation, or is this not part of your investigation?
It's part of the overall investigation of this homicide, yes.
And does the proper procedure for Los Angeles Police Department require a chronological record for that investigation, yes or no?
Yes.
Is there a chronological record for that investigation, or is that included in the 7 pages?
No, I believe there's a separate record kept with the other investigation.
Okay. And have you seen that?
No.
Would you look for that, please?
I don't have those books. All I have is the investigation that's been going on in Los Angeles here.
Well, you just said it would be proper for Los Angeles Police Department to have a chronological record, and my question is there such a record? And if there is, would you show it to us, please?
Again, Your Honor, I'm going to object. This is form over substance. We're still talking about whether forms were used and certain forms were filled out and who's keeping them. This has nothing to do with a decision made under urgent conditions to go over a wall or not to go over a wall.
The objection is sustained.
Your Honor, may I be heard on that, please?
Well, Mr. Shapiro, let me just state one thing. I recall, at least at some point during the course of these proceedings, a large envelope being handed to you by Ms. Clark, and a statement by Ms. Clark saying this relates to Chicago. I don't recall exactly when that was, but it was during the course of this. And if there are discovery issues to take up, I'm willing to do it if it's necessary, but I don't think it's necessary to do it in the course of this particular motion.
Your Honor, may I be heard briefly?
Yes.
This is not a discovery proceeding, clearly. This is a proceeding to determine the truth of the testimony from the witness stand. What we want to establish is, if there was a chronological record done, perhaps we haven't seen it. We'd like to see it. If all they have are the 7 pages, we'd like to establish that because we believe through impeachment, we will show that the testimony given from the witness stand is not true.
Well, Mr. Shapiro, this whole Chicago chronology, whether it exists or it doesn't exist, I just don't see that it's relevant to this particular proceeding.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, regarding the 7-page chronology that you have, that should, according to your policy, include the dates and times of all investigative contacts and processes. Is that correct?
If that's physically possible to do, yes.
So you would expect to find in there what took place when you went to Rockingham. Is that correct?
You would expect to find an entry there that would indicate that we were at Rockingham, yes.
And you'd expect to find an entry as to the time you arrived at Rockingham.
Isn't that noted? I haven't looked. I don't know whether that's noted or not.
I'm just asking if you'd expect to find that, yes or no?
It could be there, it could not be there.
I know it could or couldn't be there. We all know that. The question is, would you, without looking at it, sir, would you close the book, please?
Certainly.
Would you expect to find it there?
Yes.
And would you expect to find there notations that this was an emergency situation?
No.
Would you expect to find there that backup units were called, if they were?
Not necessarily.
Would you expect to find there that paramedics were called?
Your Honor, again, same objection. This line of questioning is simply not relevant to a decision made under emergency conditions as to whether or not to go over a wall.
The objection to this particular question is overruled.
Would you expect to find notations that a paramedic unit was called?
Yes.
Probably not. You would probably find that under a section of the book that relates to ambulance information.
Would you expect to find notations that you notified communications that you were at another location?
Not necessarily.
I'm asking you, would you expect to find that?
Not necessarily.
You may or you may not.
Exactly.
Are you familiar with the Los Angeles Police Department follow-up report?
Yes.
After you go to a crime scene, if there are additional factors that are not included because of time constraints, in the initial report, you do a follow-up report. Is that correct?
Again, Your Honor, I'm going to object. It's irrelevant.
Overruled.
A follow-up is done in general terms to attempt to explain what has happened. It's not a detailed description of the entire case.
An attempt to explain what has happened. Let me ask you this. Did you file an initial report outlining what you testified here today in an official LAPD, on an official LAPD form?
Same objection, Your Honor. What does it matter whether it's filed on an official form or the information is contained on a blank piece of paper? The issue is what information and what decisions were made and why they were made. This line of questioning is going to minutiae as to whether or not a form was used or whether a blank piece of paper was used. I don't see the relevance.
Well, is the import of your question whether a specific form was made or whether in fact a report was prepared?
The import is clearly whether a report was prepared.
All right, the objection then is overruled. You can answer that, sir.
A follow-up report was prepared.
Was an initial report prepared?
I don't know what you mean by an initial report. There was an initial death report and crime report that was filed.
I'm saying an initial report of you and the 3 other detectives' activities at Rockingham. Did you file an initial report?
No.
You filed a follow-up report?
Yes.
How much later did you file the follow-up report?
Your Honor, objection. Objection irrelevant. Whether reports were filed at certain times and what forms were used, how can that be relevant to whether or not an appropriate decision was made under the circumstances to go over a wall?
Mr. Shapiro, are you expecting to offer some sort of information from a report that is at odds with what the testimony was here?
Yes, Your Honor.
So this is a foundation to that?
Yes.
All right. With that understanding, the objection's overruled.
You did follow a follow-up report, is that correct?
My partner did, yes.
And when was that done?
The date should be on the report. I don't know exactly.
Have you seen the report?
I've seen it, yes.
Did you participate in the writing of the report?
No, I did not.
Did you give any information that was later contained in that report?
I must have. We talk all the time.
Well, that's the purpose of the report, isn't it? What Van Adder did, what Phillips did, what the 4 detectives did there. One person writes the report, isn't that correct?
The purpose of the report is an overall view of the investigation.
YouTube already limits my monetization of OJ, so a cigarette isn't going to make them any more angry at me than they already do. YouTube doesn't like cigarettes. But every single OJ one that I put out, I had to fight and get reviewed because they limit my monetization already.
And have you read that report for errors and omissions?
I've read the report. Not recently.
When you read it, did you find any errors or omissions in the report?
None that I recall.
If there were errors or omissions, as a detective, you would correct those with a supplemental report, would you not?
If there were errors, I don't know what you mean by omissions. Again, that's just a general overall report that gives a general outline of the investigation.
Are you satisfied with the content of the report as far as accuracy and veracity regarding what transpired at Rockingham?
Am I satisfied with it? I don't know what's contained in there regarding what occurred at Rockingham. I'm satisfied that my partner did a comprehensive report, yes.
I thought you said you read it.
I did read it, but again, I haven't read it recently, and I don't recall what's in the report, Mr. Shapiro.
Would you take a moment to read it and refresh your memory?
Certainly.
How long is that report, do you know?
I don't know. Okay. Yes, I'm satisfied with what's in it.
In the report, in the third paragraph, it says upon arrival that you noticed a Bronco, and the vehicle was parked at an angle to the curb with the rear end jutting out into the roadway.
Okay.
Is that accurate?
Yes, the rear end was sticking out farther than the front end.
Well, it says into the roadway. What is that? What did you mean, or what did your partner mean by that term?
Well, the vehicle is parked on the roadway. Where it was parked is part of the roadway. It was the rear end was sticking farther out into the roadway than the front end was.
How far was the rear sticking out further?
I don't know. I didn't measure it, sir.
Well, this was an important event for you, was it not?
There were a lot of things occurring at that time. I didn't measure it, Mr. Shapiro. I don't know how far out it was as compared to the front end.
But this was, you would agree, one of your very key important observations.
At that point?
That led you to going into the house, was it not?
No, it just appeared that the vehicle was parked unusual, like it had been parked in haste. I wouldn't say that was not the catalyst that caused me to go in.
Well, if Detective Furman said that that was a very important aspect and caused him considerable consternation and led him as one of the main ingredients to going into the house, you would say he was wrong.
Objection that misstates testimony.
Sustained.
Now, how long was the car at the scene before it was moved, the Bronco?
I don't know.
Yo, that is what he said. And now this guy's saying, nah, that was nothing.
Do you have any records to refresh your memory as to when it was towed?
No, I don't. I might. I don't know. I can look in the book if you would like me to do that.
Would that be in the chronological log?
No, it would probably be under the vehicle section of there. I don't know. I could look and see.
All right, would you do that, please?
Certainly. It would indicate on the vehicle report itself that the vehicle was removed at 15:30 hours, 3:30 in the afternoon.
Now, how many hours was it there from the time you made your initial observation to the time it was removed?
Oh, it would have been sometime between 5 and 5:30 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon.
Would that give you sufficient time to ask somebody to go measure how far the car was out?
I never did that, sir.
My question was, would it...
Sure, absolutely. I never did that, though.
I take it that your experience as a senior detective, that when the criminalist came out, you would want him to photograph the car.
Yes.
Again,
And you'd want him
objection.
to photograph the angle of the car.
Excuse me just a minute.
The manner in which the investigation was conducted in terms of the collection of evidence has no bearing on the decision made to go over the wall. And objection, this is irrelevant.
Overruled.
And the angle of the car would be important for something for you to record with your criminalist, is that correct?
I had the criminalist photograph, yes.
And you had him photograph it from a position where we could later review the angle of the car, isn't that correct?
I wasn't there when the photographing was done.
Well, you're in charge of this, aren't you?
Well, I'm one of the co-investigators.
Well,
You're placing more importance on me than I have, Mr. Shapiro. I wish I had that much importance.
Well, who's in charge of this investigation?
Who's in charge of this investigation?
who's
The
in
Los
charge?
Angeles Police Department, where I work.
Okay, so Willie Williams is in charge, is that correct?
That would be the ultimate responsibility, yes.
And out in the field, who was in charge?
Myself and my partner.
And as far as collecting evidence, who's in charge?
We direct a criminalist to do that.
Okay. And you direct the criminalist and the photographer to take pictures, don't you?
Exactly.
Okay, did you direct the criminalist and photographer to take pictures of the Bronco?
I was not there when that was done.
Did you ask him to do it?
I asked the criminalist to have it photographed, yes.
Did you tell him why you wanted it photographed?
Yes, I did.
Or did you just leave it up to the photographer to take some pictures? Maybe you take a picture of the tire, maybe take a picture of the gas tank.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
I mean, isn't it somebody's job to tell someone what type of pictures you should take?
They were told what type of pictures to take.
By whom?
I told the criminalist.
Thank you. And you've seen photographs of the Bronco as it was taken by the criminalist?
Yes,
And do those accurately depict the position of the car when you arrived?
yes.
They're not distorted in any way, are they?
Well, objection, that calls for speculation. Let the witness see the pictures that the counsel's referring to.
Sustained.
Have you seen the pictures?
Yes,
Are they
I can see the pictures right here.
Are there other pictures that were
For the
taken?
record, the witness is referring to photograph A of People's
Is that the People 6?
6, Your Honor?
I believe so.
Have you seen any other photographs of the Bronco
8.
parked in a position that you observed it? When
I've
you
seen a
initially
number of
arrived?
photographs,
You've
yes.
seen those?
Yes.
And, well, you've answered the question. They properly depict what you observed when you
Well,
arrived.
objection, that's vague. as to
Do
which
they
photographs.
properly depict what you observed when you arrived?
I'm sorry.
Vegas-
Mr. Shapiro, which photographs now are you referring to? Are
Any
you referring
photographs? I asked him a wide-open question. In the hundreds of photographs that were taken, have you seen any photograph?
This is still just the preliminary hearing. The dream team has not been put together yet. This is a year before the trial starts.
Of the Bronco
Or
at the
something like
scene
that.
at Rockingham? His answer was yes. My question now is, are those photographs accurate, and do they depict, any of these photographs, depict what you observed when you arrived?
Again, objection. Counsel is attempting to ascertain, apparently, whether any of the photographs taken depict the angle at which the rear end was jutting out. And unless this witness is permitted to review all of the photographs taken at this time, he's not going to be able to give an accurate answer. It's vague as to which photographs he's referring to. There are numerous.
All right, Mr. Shapiro, I'm not sure how many photographs we're referring to. There have been a number of photographs that have been utilized during the course of this proceeding. If you're limiting your question to those that have been marked, that have been shown, and that the witness can take a look at, I think that that's a fair question. But just broadly asking a question like the one you're asking with regard to photographs about which the court doesn't know what you're referring to, I think it's just overbroad.
The question is whether the witness does, Your Honor. And my question to him is a simple one. Were there any photographs taken that accurately depict the vehicle at the time you arrived?
Well, that was not the question, Your Honor.
That'll be a new question.
Okay. You can answer that if you're able to, sir.
So I understand the question. Were there photographs taken that accurately depict?
The position of the Bronco at the time you arrived at the scene?
I would have to say yes.
Thank you. Now, in the murder-up follow-up report on paragraph 3, it says the following. Peering into the locked vehicle's rear window, detectives observed a package with a label indicating a return address to O.J. Simpson Enterprises. A registration check of the vehicle revealed it to belong to Hertz Rental. Is that correct, of the observations that were made?
Yes, among a number of other observations.
Where in this report does it say that you or anybody else observed the shovel?
It doesn't.
Where in this report does it say that you or anyone else observed plastic?
It doesn't, but I observed it in the back of the car.
That wasn't my question.
I answered the question.
Thank
It
you.
doesn't, but I observed it in the car.
Motion to strike the last part is non-responsive.
I'll sustain as to the last portion.
Then it says, upon closer observation of the vehicle, detectives observed what appeared to be human blood near the handle on the driver's door. Is that correct?
If you're reading from the report, yes, that's correct.
And did you observe human blood?
I observed what I thought was blood. I thought it was human blood, if I can explain that.
Now, my question is, did you observe human blood, yes or no?
What I believe to be human blood, yes.
You didn't put that in the report, that you believed it to be human blood, did you?
I didn't write the report. No, I didn't put it in any report.
And can you determine the difference between animal blood and human blood?
No, but based on my experience, and I can explain that very easily if you want me to.
I don't want you to.
Well,
Maybe the people might want you to. I want you to answer the questions I ask.
Your Honor, this is unfair. He's being questioned as an expert. He's entitled to explain his answer.
Well, he does, though, have to answer the questions that are asked. And Ms. Clark, you will have a chance to question the witness further if you feel some additional explanation is warranted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would you describe the size of the blood that you saw?
It was a small spot, quarter-eighth of an inch.
And did you look at it with the naked eye or with some type of magnifying glass?
My naked eye.
Did you use some type of light to illuminate it?
Flashlight, yes.
Do you wear glasses?
I wear reading glasses, yes.
Did you use your glasses to look at this?
Yes.
And were you able to distinguish this from any other type of red stain as being human blood?
I believed it was blood.
I'm saying, my question was, were you able to distinguish this from any other type of red stain?
I believed it was a red stain. I believed it was blood.
Thank you. What about at the bottom of the door? Did you see any brush marks of what you believe to be blood?
No, I don't recall seeing that.
And that's not recorded anywhere in any of the reports, is there? Is that?
I don't know.
And that wasn't called to your attention by anyone, was it?
I don't recall seeing that. I can't answer the question.
When you and the three other detectives went to Mr. O.J. Simpson's residence, did you inform the communications division of your intentions?
I don't believe so. I didn't personally.
Did anyone to your knowledge?
No.
Is that standard procedure?
I very seldom inform communications division of my movements.
I just asked you if that's standard procedure.
Objection, that's irrelevant.
Sustained.
If
Why, yes. Yes, it is.
somebody told you from Bunday to take Bunday to Sunset, take Sunset towards the beach to Rockingham and turn right on Rockingham and go 2 blocks, could you follow those directions?
Yes, I could. I absolutely could follow those directions 100%. No, if you say go west 3 miles and then turn east for 2 miles, no, I would never get there. But those directions, perfect.
Yeah, I believe I could, yes. Bundy makes a funny turn there, but yes, I believe I could.
Well, could you follow that funny turn or not?
Oh, I think so,
Objection,
yeah.
argumentative.
Sustained.
Could you find Sunset Boulevard from where you were? Without any directions?
From where I was on
From the
Bundy?
Bundy location, could you find Sunset Boulevard?
Yes, I worked that division for 3 years, yes.
Was all your work completed at the crime scene by the time you left to go to the Rockingham address?
No.
How many officers were at the crime scene that were higher ranking than you at the time you left?
They were higher ranking than me?
Yes.
I believe 3.
Who were they?
My lieutenant, John Rogers, and I believe a lieutenant and a captain from West Los Angeles division.
What are their names?
I don't know.
Would you check the chronological record that was done by your partner and see if they were there at the time you left?
Objection,
Certainly.
Your Honor. What is the relevance of who was present at the crime scene?
Mr. Shapiro?
Yes, this all goes to credibility and impeachment. We're going to show that the 4 officers that were in charge of this crime scene left the crime scene with a very short period of time without properly preserving
Yeah, but Fozzie doesn't wear his on his head.
the crime scene, not to go to the Simpson residence for an emergency, but to go there because of the celebrity nature of Mr. Simpson.
Mr. Shapiro, the specific names of the higher-ranking officers that were present at the crime scene, I don't see that that's relevant.
The question is, was anybody left there?
Well, the testimony was there were 3.
Okay. Would you check your chronological record to see if, in fact, there were 3 people higher ranking than you at the time you left the crime scene to go to Rockingham?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you leave somebody in charge of the crime scene when you left?
Yes,
Who'd you leave in charge?
my boss, Lieutenant Rogers.
And did you tell him what to do, or did he tell you what to do?
We informed him that we were going to go up there to make a notification in an attempt to make a disposition for the children, to secure that crime scene and maintain the security with the uniformed officers that were there, and that we would be back.
So it was now his job to secure the crime scene, and you were going to make your notification and find someplace for the children to go.
Well, the crime scene was secured before I ever got there, hours before I ever got there, so it was under security the whole time.
To continue that security.
Exactly.
My guess is he bought the toupee over a year ago or so.
And 4 detectives were going to make a notification.
Yes.
How many detectives does it take to make a notification?
I don't know. I think that would depend on the situation that you were in. I don't know. 1, it could take 10 if there's certain situations. I don't know.
Well, in this situation, when you were going to O.J. Simpson's residence, how many detectives do you think were necessary to make the notification?
Myself and my partner went up there, and we were accompanied by Detective Furman and Detective Phillips.
No, I know that was the fact. My question is, how many do you feel was necessary to go to make the notification?
I don't think I ever even considered that. How many do I think it's necessary to make a notification?
Yes.
Well, normally we go in pairs for a number of reasons. Number 1, we have 2 people that are privy to the information, plus for our own personal safety. We don't go places by ourselves. So a minimum of 2, and the other 2 officers went with us, which is not unusual.
So 4 people to make a notification is your answer?
No, you didn't. 2. The other 2 officers went with us, which is
That's right,
not
you
unusual.
And of the 4 that went, they were the 4 highest ranking investigative detectives.
No.
There were other detectives there who have been assigned to this case that had jobs that exceeded yours.
I don't understand that. I don't know what you mean.
Thank you. Were you primarily responsible for the investigation of the murder scene?
Myself and my partner, yes.
Thank you. And you had relieved Detective Phillips and Detective Van Adder.
This is
Well, I
Van.
didn't
I'm sorry,
relieve myself.
I'm getting a little tired myself. You had relieved the 2 West LA detectives.
They were assisting us. We had assumed the responsibility, however, they were assisting us, and they still continue to assist us to this day.
Where were the children at the point in time that you went to Mr. Simpson's residence?
I was told they were at West Los Angeles Division of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Does the Los Angeles Police Department have facilities for special people to deal with children in situations such as this?
The Los Angeles Police Department has a juvenile division. However, I don't believe they would be working that time of the morning.
Does it have people who are specially trained in dealing with children to care for their whereabouts in the event of the unfortunate death or murder of a parent or parents?
Again, they have juvenile officers that work nothing but juvenile. I would say that they are probably very competent in handling juveniles, but at that time of the day, I don't believe they would be working.
Did you check?
Did I check?
Yes.
No, I did not.
Did you check on the welfare concerns of the children before you went to Rockingham?
I spoke with Detective Phillips, who told me that they had been taken from the location to West Los Angeles Division where they were being cared for.
And did you ask them if they were being properly cared for, or if there was any real immediate concern for them, or that you were really more concerned with your criminal investigation and that should proceed?
Well, I think being a father myself and being a grandfather, that anytime I deal with minor children in any kind of traumatic situation like this, I think they have to be attended to. And I had concern for those children because we're talking about a very traumatic thing, to be taken out of your bed at midnight or 12:30 in the morning by the police in your home and removed from your home and taken to a police station. That's a very traumatic thing. And if it was my children or my grandchild, I would want whoever did that to be very, very interested in the welfare of that child.
I agree, and I hope that...
And I have that interest, believe me.
And I take it then in that regard you would attempt, after you couldn't reach Mr. Simpson immediately, to try to notify the grandparents, who are really the next of kin.
No, the grandparents are not the next of kin. The father of the children are the next of kin, and that's who I was trying to notify.
What about the next of kin of Nicole, the victim of this murder?
The next of kin would be her parents.
And what attempts did you make to try to notify them?
I believe they were notified that morning by telephone.
My question is, what attempts did you make to notify them?
I just said I believe my partner notified him that morning by telephone.
What time?
I don't know exactly.
Do you have any records of that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Would that be in that murder book?
I don't know. There's a lot of information in here. I don't know everything by heart that's in here.
And for the record, the witness, when he said in here, is referring to a binder that appears to be about 4 inches thick.
All right.
Let me ask you a question. If Mr. Goldman had been the sole victim of this case under the same circumstances, would the same investigation be taking place?
Objection, irrelevant.
Sustained.
I take it the same precautions were taken to notify Mr. Goldman's next of kin.
Once he was identified, yes.
Did somebody rush over to their house?
I believe it was done by telephone, but I'm not sure.
Of the 4 detectives that you had, did any of you
Objection,
think
Your
of
Honor.
going to Mr. Goldman's house?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant with respect.
Sustained.
When you got to the Simpson residence, you went to the buzzer?
Yes.
And upon arriving there, did you notice any other vehicles other than the Ford Bronco?
Yes.
What other vehicles did you notice?
There was another vehicle parked on Ashford, and I don't recall the description of it, but there was another vehicle parked on Ashford.
Did you take photographs of that vehicle?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you observe that vehicle to see whether there were any things that looked like red spots on it?
The vehicle just appeared to be a vehicle parked there at the curb.
Did you look into that vehicle?
I didn't personally know.
Did any of the other 3 detectives, to your knowledge, look into that vehicle?
I don't have any knowledge of that.
Did you check the license plate on that vehicle and see who it was registered to?
You know, I believe that was done, yes.
Who was that registered to?
I believe the vehicle,
Hi, Jay.
if I recall correctly, I believe the vehicle belonged to Mr. Kalin.
But you didn't take any steps to photograph or preserve that vehicle, did you?
Not to my knowledge.
How many times do you recall that you rang the buzzer in an attempt to notify Mr. Simpson?
How many times?
Yeah, you ring it once.
Several. I couldn't tell you how many times.
Would you describe this? We've heard testimony about it. Would you describe what it is that you?
Sure. It's like a little square speaker box that has a button, and you press the button, you can hear the phone ringing inside the residence.
And you could clearly hear it ringing?
Yes.
How many times did it ring approximately? And this is not a great moment to be accurate, but did it ring just once, or does it continue to ring with each press?
No, it rings. You press the button, it will ring, and again, this is an estimate, maybe 6 to 8 times, and then stop ringing. You push the button, it starts the cycle again.
And you did this for 10 to 15 minutes?
At least, yeah.
Did you hear more? Could you tell whether more than one phone was ringing?
No, I could only hear the one.
But, and how far away were you from the house when you were doing this?
I could make an estimate of maybe 50 to 75 feet.
That ringing was pretty loud.
Yeah, I could hear it.
Did you think that if you called on a telephone, it would ring louder?
No, I just thought maybe someone would answer the telephone.
Well,
It was just another attempt to try and locate someone.
didn't this appear to be the telephone ringing?
This appeared to be the intercom for the gate system, yes.
And did it appear to work on a telephone?
I heard ringing.
No, you believed that a telephone was ringing, didn't you?
I think we're arguing a point. Something was ringing inside. I didn't know whether it was a telephone or whether it was an intercom system that rang to alert someone that there was a person at the front gate. I heard ringing, Mr. Shapiro.
Does the Los Angeles Police Department have the capabilities in an emergency situation of getting home phone numbers of people who may have unlisted numbers?
Not necessarily. When you have a non-published number, normally you need a search warrant to get that information.
Have you ever heard of something called a reverse directory?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
What is that?
That's a
I don't think I asked. No.
directory that has published phone numbers that coincide with addresses in it.
So you look up the address and you find the phone number.
If it's a published number, yes. If it's a published phone number.
Did you take any steps to go through official Los Angeles Police Department channels to try to ascertain the home phone number of Mr. Simpson?
Did I personally?
Yes.
No, but I'm aware of official steps that were taken.
Did any of the other 3 detectives at the time you were at the gate try to do this?
Yes, Detective Phillips contacted the West LA Watch Commander, who also made contact with West Tech Security.
So that was the only way of doing it, just through West Tech?
That was all we could do at that point, yes.
Speaking of West Tech, when West Tech was out there, did you or your partners there ask the West Tech representatives if they were routinely notified when Mr. Simpson was gone for the house for a day or more?
I never asked that question.
What about the other 3 officers?
I don't know.
Did it ever occur to you that even though Mr. Simpson might have a full-time maid, that she might have a day or 2 off during the week?
People have days off. We were told that there was supposed to be a full-time live-in maid.
By whom?
By West Tech Security.
And does a full-time live-in maid to you mean 7 days a week, 24 hours a day?
I don't know, sir. I've never had a maid.
My maid is here 24/7, 365.
Did you ask them whether she had any scheduled days on or off?
I didn't know.
Did any of the other 3 detectives ask that?
I don't know that.
After there was no response from the attempts at the telephone and ringing the buzzer, did you try to use any type of amplified speakers or microphones to get the attention of Mr. Simpson?
No.
How long after you were ringing the buzzer did you make the observations of the red blotch on the Bronco?
That would have been within the first probably 10 to 20 minutes of being there.
After ringing the buzzer?
No, after getting to the location.
So you went to the Bronco first?
I saw the Bronco as I pulled in. I didn't ring the bell for the continuous time. I rang it some of the other detectives rang it some.
And then you started looking at the Bronco?
I looked at the Bronco when I first drove in, and then after ringing the bell a few times, I went around again and looked at the Bronco, and that's when I observed the items in the back of the car.
No, my question is, when did you observe the blood on the Bronco?
Within the first 10 to 20 minutes when Furman came and took me back.
Of being at the scene? Of arriving at the scene?
Probably in that time frame, yes.
And is that reflected in any notes or any logs?
Not to my knowledge.
Is that an important part of this investigation?
That was a part that was continuing there, yes.
Is that an important part?
Yes.
And is that something that should be noted as to the time of discovery?
Well, it's something that, again, if I can explain the situation, we have an emergency situation, we're not able to stop.
Your Honor.
May I finish my answer, sir?
I have an objection.
He has an objection to his own question.
No, I don't think he's objecting to his question. I think he's objecting to your answer. Detective, I believe that the question was, should the time of that discovery have been noted in your
And I'm
records?
trying to explain why it isn't, Your Honor, if I may do that.
No, my question is not why it isn't. My question is, should it have been?
Well, that goes to why it is or is not, Your Honor.
Well, first let's have the answer to should it have been, and then we'll hear your explanation.
I can't say yes or no to that. That depends on the circumstances that you're in. If you're in a gun battle someplace, you don't have time to say, hold on a second, let me write this time down. If you have an emergency situation, you don't have time to break and say, hold on a second, I need to record all of this. In this situation, it was not recorded because I didn't feel at that point that I could stop and start taking notes because things were happening too quick.
Did you hear any noise from inside the residence that caused you concern that somebody might be dying?
I heard no noise at all outside the ringing, and that caused me concern because I believe people should be there.
And your sole purpose at this time was to notify somebody of a death and to find the father of the children?
At what time, sir?
At the point in time that you're at the residence for the first 15 minutes.
Before observing the blood?
Well, you said you observed the blood immediately and then went and rang the bell.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Isn't your testimony that the bell was rung for 15 minutes and within the first 10 minutes you observed the blood?
No, that's not true.
Let's go over that. When did you observe the blood?
I got to the location. We went to the Ashford side, parked the vehicles, got out, attempted to ring the bell. Telephone calls were made to West Tech Security. They actually ended up sending 2 units to the location. A telephone call was made to the watch commander at West LA Division. And during all of this occurrence, Detective Furman come to me and said, I think I see blood on the vehicle. And he walked me over there. This could have been 10 minutes into it. It could have been 30 minutes into it. I can't tell you exactly.
Well, you could tell us because you made a telephone call to the watch commander.
No. I can't tell you exactly because all of this is occurring. This is not a sequence of events, Mr. Shapiro. This is a group of things that are occurring at the same time.
So right at the time the blood is spotted, you determine this to be an emergency situation, yes or no?
Right at the time it's spotted. I believe I was getting to that frame of mind prior to that because of the prior information that I had, the fact that I had left a very brutal murder scene that's very close to this location, the fact that one of the victims has a connection to Mr. Simpson. I think I was getting in that frame of mind before I ever saw the blood. I think seeing the blood was the trigger that caused me to make a decision to go over the fence.
What was the time of death of the decedents, to the best of your knowledge, at the time you were at Rockingham?
The time of death. Well, I can only tell you that I was informed that I believe they were found or discovered at approximately 0010 hours, which would be 10 after midnight. The
And
time of death, I would have no idea.
it was sometime before, but certainly not after.
Obviously, sometime before 0010 hours would be time of death, yes.
And what time did you decide to scale the fence for the emergency at the Simpson house?
I believe it was very close to 6 o'clock, around 6 o'clock in the morning.
Now, you went over there. When you scaled the fence, you believed that there may be hostages inside. Is that correct?
I believe there may be a whole set of
Well,
circumstances.
let's take them one by one. Was one of the set of circumstances you believed that there would be hostages inside?
I can't answer that yes or no. There could have been 1,000 scenarios of that situation.
And you can't
The
tell us.
facts, may I finish, sir? The facts that lead me up to going over the wall included a set of facts that led me to believe that this was an emergency situation.
Can you tell us whether or not you believe there was a hostage situation? Yes or no?
Raven left us.
That could have been a possibility, yes.
And if there was a hostage situation, would you notify communications for backup?
If I was totally aware of that, that would change the entire circumstances of that entry into that location. What you're talking about is you're taking a tactical field situation and equating it to an emergency field situation, which is two different set of circumstances.
Did you believe that there was the possibility of people at the residence or on the grounds bleeding to death?
That was a possibility, yes.
If you truly believed that, would you call communications and ask for paramedics?
Not until I made sure that that was
Yes,
a safe
Fred, I
location,
saw.
no.
If you were concerned about your safety, would you go in with backup units?
Definitely.
Did you go in with backup units?
No.
If you were concerned about your safety, would you go in with vest?
Definitely.
Did you go in with vest?
No.
If you were concerned about your safety, would you go in with weapons drawn?
If I was, yes.
Did you go in with weapons drawn?
No.
Your Honor, before we go into another area, which may be more lengthy, perhaps this might be a good time. It's a few minutes early. May I suggest a
That is
break?
pretty hot.
All right. Detective Van Adder, thank you. Please don't discuss your testimony with any other witness. And I'll see counsel in chambers, please.
Counsel's in chambers. Somebody's in trouble. Okay, we are at 17. We're at 17. So now we know where to start. We did so well today. We are in July 6th. Okay, we have 4 more July 6th left. All right, we're almost at the trial, guys. We're almost at the trial. We're almost in 1995. Thanks for coming out today. Oops. I really appreciate you helping me take a big chunk out of this. We did really, really, really well. So I will see you in a couple hours. Actually, no. Everybody just go to sleep for a bit, please. Get some sleep. I'll have my stream tomorrow, but you guys should sleep right through it. Watch it later. Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much. What? Bye, guys.